They treated her like she was nothing, because they had no idea she was everything. "Spread your feet wider," he said, "wider." The metal detector wand hovered inches from her chest. The security guard holding it doesn't blink. His nameplate read Harlan, and his hand is steady, not from training but from practice. He's done this before many times to people who look exactly like her. The woman complied, arms out, feet apart, another screening in a short span. She doesn't know it yet, but soon she'll be sitting in the chair behind the bench in courtroom 1. The nameplate on that desk will read Justice Naomi Ellison. And this man, Sergeant Russell Harlan, 17 complaints in his file, all dismissed, will be standing before her in handcuffs. But right now, in this moment, she is just another black woman in a cardigan being wanded like a suspect, while white men in suits breeze through the checkpoint untouched. The wand passes over her body slowly, deliberately down her arms, across her stomach, between her legs. "Lift your bag." She lifts it. "Open it." She opens it. His fingers push past her reading glasses, her leather journal, the manila envelope she hasn't opened yet. The envelope that contains her judicial commission signed by the governor recently. What's in the envelope? Documents. What kind of documents? Personal. He holds the envelope up to the light, squinting like he might develop X-ray vision through sheer contempt. "You got a problem with reading, or are you waiting for an invitation?" She says nothing, just watches his hands on her belongings, memorizes the angle of his jaw, the placement of his feet, the way his badge catches the fluorescent light. Above the checkpoint, a laminated sign reads, Fairmont County Courthouse. Security screening policy: random selections shall be conducted without regard to race, gender, or national origin. Florida Statute 810.0909 governs all trespass determinations. Her lips move silently, tracing each word. The wand beeps. Nothing on her body set it off. The machine didn't even register, but Russell Harlan smiles anyway. "Step aside, Ma. We're going to need to do a pat-down. If you're satisfied with that powerful twist, hit subscribe, because what happens next will make your blood boil." Earlier, a rental Camry pulls off the highway at exit 47, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn fog. The dashboard clock glowed in the darkness. The woman behind the wheel has been driving since midnight, a long drive from Tallahassee, and she hasn't stopped once. Naomi Ellison checks her mirrors before turning into the parking lot of the Fairmont Motor Lodge. 12 units, a vending machine, a flickering vacancy sign, missing the V. She had chosen this place on purpose, not the Marriott downtown where the other judges stay during circuit conferences, not the bed and breakfast that sends fruit baskets to the courthouse. This place doesn't send anything to anyone. This place doesn't know who she is. That's the point. She parks in the spot farthest from the office, retrieves her single suitcase from the trunk, and walks to Unit 7. The key works on the third try. The door swings open to reveal exactly what she expected. A queen bed with a synthetic comforter, a television bolted to the dresser, a bathroom with towels thin enough to read through. Perfect. She unpacks methodically. Toiletries lined by height along the sink. 3 sets of clothes for several days, each on its own hanger. Case files stacked on the desk with color-coded tabs. Red for criminal appeals. Blue for civil matters, yellow for administrative complaints. The yellow stack is the thickest. More than 2 decades of appellate work taught her that disorder breeds error. It also taught her that the most revealing truth about any institution isn't found in its official reports. It's found in how that institution treats people who have no power to fight back. In several days, she will become the presiding justice of Fairmont County. Her name will be on the door, her face on the website, her signature on every administrative order. But before any of that happens, she wants to know one thing. What does this courthouse do to people like her when no one important is watching? She pulls out her leather journal, the same one her mother gave her when she passed the bar exam long ago, and writes the date at the top of a fresh page. Initial entry, objective, observe, document, do not intervene. She underlines the last 3 words twice. The courthouse opens as Naomi arrives at wearing slacks, a gray cardigan, and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. No briefcase, no judicial ID, just the worn leather messenger bag that's been with her since law school. A line has already formed at the security checkpoint. She takes her place at the end behind a young mother with a stroller and an elderly man leaning on a cane. Neither of them looks comfortable. Neither of them looks like they want to be here. The line moved slowly. She watches the checkpoint the way she watches a courtroom, noting patterns, cataloging details. The 2 guards working the metal detector are both white men, mid-40s, carrying the particular combination of boredom and authority that makes small men dangerous. One of them has a nameplate she can't read from here. The other is laughing at something on his phone. A white man in a suit approaches the detector. He doesn't remove his belt. He doesn't empty his pockets. He just walks through. The machine did not beep. No one asks him to stop. The young mother is next. She has to collapse the stroller, remove her shoes, hold her baby, while a guard wands the diaper bag. The whole process takes far longer than it should. The elderly man sets off the detector, probably a pacemaker, probably documented in his medical records. He gets pulled aside, wanded, patted down. He doesn't complain. His face suggests he's been through this before. Naomi reaches the checkpoint. The machine did not beep when she walks through. Step aside. The guard with the nameplate she couldn't read before is Russell Harlan. 61, 220, neck thick as a fire hydrant. He's already reaching for the wand. Arms out. She raised her arms. Random selection, he said loudly enough for the line to hear. Nothing personal. The wand beeps at her hip. There's nothing on her hip. She's wearing slacks with no belt and a cardigan with no metal buttons. Empty your pockets. I don't have pockets. He looks at her like she's just told him the sky is green. Then what's making the wand go off? Perhaps the wand? His eyes narrow. Behind him, the other guard has stopped looking at his phone. You being smart with me? I'm answering your question. The moment stretches. Naomi keeps her arms raised, keeps her expression neutral, keeps cataloging. Badge number 2847. No body camera visible. Slight tremor in his left hand. That could be rage, or could be his 3rd coffee of the morning. Move through. He steps aside. She collects her bag from the X-ray belt and walks into the courthouse lobby. The whole interaction took a brief moment. It will take her 3 pages in her journal to document what she saw. The clerk's window is on the 1st floor between the elevators and the restrooms. A laminated sign taped to the counter reads, "Information, take a number." Naomi looks for the numbered ticket dispenser. It's empty. She approaches the window anyway. The woman behind the glass has platinum blonde hair, sculpted into a helmet and fingernails painted the color of dried blood. Her nameplate reads, Celeste Pryor, Deputy Clerk. Excuse me, I'd like to inquire about public records access. Celeste doesn't look up from her computer screen. Take a number. The dispenser is empty. Then I guess you'll have to wait. Naomi waits, stands at the window, hands folded, watching Celeste type something that requires only her index fingers. Several minutes pass. A white woman approaches the window. No number, no waiting. She taps on the glass. Celeste, do you know if Judge Calhoun is available this afternoon? I need to reschedule the Henderson deposition. Celeste transforms. Smile, eye contact, actual human engagement. Let me check his calendar. Hun. 1 second. She picks up the phone, makes a call, relays the answer with warmth and efficiency. He's free at 3. Want me to send the confirmation to your office? That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. The woman leaves. Celeste goes back to her typing. Naomi is still standing at the window. She waits another moment, then clears her throat. Excuse me, I told you take a number. I've been standing here for several minutes. You just helped someone who arrived after me. Celeste finally looks up. Her expression cycles through irritation, assessment, and something harder. She had an appointment. She didn't give a name or case number. How did you know she had an appointment? I know everyone who has business in this courthouse. The implication hangs in the air like smoke. And you don't. Naomi opens her journal, writes the date, the time, a brief description of the exchange. Celeste watches her write. What are you doing? Taking notes. Notes about what? About this conversation. Celeste's fingernails tap against the counter. Click, click, click. Like a timer counting down. You can file a complaint if you want. Forms are on the table by the door. Naomi looks at the table by the door. There are no forms. The table is empty. Then I guess we're out of forms. Courtroom 4B is open to the public. Naomi finds a seat in the back row of the gallery, positioning herself where she can see both the bench and the door. The room is half full. Families of defendants, a few reporters, a law student with a laptop who's typing notes faster than the court reporter. The case being heard is a sentencing drug possession. The defendant is a young black man in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed to a chain around his waist. His public defender looks like she hasn't slept in several days. The judge on the bench is Warren Calhoun, older, decades on the circuit. His face has the weathered quality of a man who stopped being surprised by human behavior sometime during the Reagan administration. Mr. Reed, you've been convicted of possession with intent to distribute. The minimum sentence under Florida law is several years. The maximum is 15. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? The defendant's voice is barely audible. I have a daughter, Your Honor. She's 4. I just want to see her grow up. Judge Calhoun shuffles papers. Noted. The court sentences you to many years in state custody with eligibility for parole after 4. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls. The defendant is led away. His mother, seated in the front row, doesn't cry. She's probably done that already in private where no one could see. The courtroom empties. Naomi stays. She studies the dimensions of the room, the sight lines, the way sound carries from the bench to the gallery. In several days, she'll be making decisions from a room exactly like this one. Different cases, same weight. Court's not in session, Ma. The voice comes from behind her. Naomi turns to find a woman in her 60s with a mop bucket and a janitor's uniform. Her name badge reads Marisol. I know, just getting a feel for the place. Marisol pauses. Her eyes move over Naomi's posture. The straight spine, the folded hands, the centered position on the bench. You here for a case? Something like that. Something in the answer makes Marisol tilt her head. She's worked in this building for years. She's seen every kind of person who walks through these doors. Defendants and victims, lawyers and liars, people with hope, and people who've lost it. This woman doesn't fit any of those categories. Well, Marisol says finally, good luck with your case. She wheels her bucket out of the courtroom. The door swings shut behind her. Naomi stays a short while writing in her journal. When she leaves, she takes the long way around past the administrative wing. She'll soon call her office. The door is unmarked. Authorized personnel only. She doesn't try to enter, not today. But she notes its location, the type of lock, the angle of the security camera above it. Initial entry, she writes, first observations, screening process inconsistent, public services obstructed, institutional resistance visible at entry level. Assessment, preliminary concerns confirmed. Continue observation. Day 2 begins the same way. Same line, same checkpoint, same theater. This time, Russell Harlan spots her before she even reaches the metal detector. You again? Good morning. Step aside. She steps aside. The wand runs over her body for the third time in a short time. It doesn't beep. He waves her through anyway. You got business in the courthouse today? I'm observing court proceedings. That's permitted under Florida law. Observing what? Justice. The word sits between them like a stone in still water. Russell's jaw tightens. Don't cause trouble. I'm standing in line. Is that trouble? He doesn't answer, just watches her collect her bag and walk toward the elevators. She can feel his eyes on her back all the way across the lobby. The administrative wing is on the third floor. Naomi doesn't try to enter. She walks past the authorized personnel on door, notes the placement of the security camera, and continues to the public restroom at the end of the hall. On her way back, she pauses at the water fountain. A man in a charcoal suit emerges from the administrative wing, mid-50s, receding hairline, the confident gait of someone who knows he belongs. She catches the door before it closes. Excuse me. The man turns. His expression goes through the same cycle she saw on Celeste's face. Irritation, assessment, something harder. Can I help you? I'm looking for the court administrator's office. I'd like to request a visitor pass. For what purpose? Familiarization. I'll be spending considerable time in this building. His eyes move over her cardigan, her messenger bag, her reading glasses. Are you an attorney? I have a law degree. Yes. Licensed in Florida? Yes. He doesn't introduce himself, but she already knows who he is. Preston Vale, court administrator. The man whose signature appears at the bottom of every dismissed complaint in her yellow file. We don't issue familiarization passes, he says. If you're here for a specific case, you can access the courtroom assigned. Otherwise, he shrugs, I can't help you. Could you direct me to the published policy on visitor access? I'd like to review the full text. Something flickers in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or weariness. It's on our website. Section 4.7.3 appears to contradict what I've been told. I'd appreciate clarification in writing if possible. He stares at her for a long moment. Then he walks away without another word. The door to the administrative wing clicks shut behind him. The patience it takes to stay silent when you know exactly who you are. That's coming next. Stay tuned. Naomi sits in the public cafeteria on the first floor, eating a sandwich she brought from the motel. Around her, courthouse employees cluster at tables, speaking in the hushed tones of people who know exactly who belongs and who doesn't. A security guard she hasn't seen before takes a position by the water fountain. He's not getting water. He's watching her. She pulls out her paperback, a biography of Thurgood Marshall. She's read 4 times and reads or appears to read. What she's actually doing is counting a long stretch. That's how long the guard watches her before his radio crackles and he walks away. She finishes her sandwich, notes the time in her journal, returns to her observation. The afternoon session of Courtroom 4B is a civil matter, a landlord-tenant dispute that should have been resolved in small claims. The tenant is a black woman in her 30s representing herself. The landlord has an attorney who bills $300 an hour. Judge Calhoun listens to both sides with the patience of a man who's heard this story 1,000 times. When the tenant tries to introduce photographs of mold in her apartment, the landlord's attorney objects. Foundation? Your Honor, these photographs haven't been properly authenticated. Sustained, Ms. Bellamy. Do you have the witness who can verify when and where these photographs were taken? The tenant looks lost. She doesn't know what authentication means. She doesn't know she needed a witness. I took them myself, Your Honor, on my phone last month. I understand, but without proper foundation, I can't admit them as evidence. Do you have any other documentation? She doesn't. The case continues. The tenant loses. The landlord's attorney looks bored. Naomi writes in her journal, access to justice, equal access. Self-represented litigants disadvantaged by procedural requirements they don't understand and no one explains. She returns to the administrative wing. This time, Russell Harlan is waiting. "Ma, we need to talk." Behind him, Lieutenant Nolan Pierce holds a clipboard. He's younger than Russell, sharper looking, with the polished demeanor of a man who writes reports that make ugly things sound reasonable. "I'd like to see the court administrator," Naomi says. "I was told he's not available, but I believe his office hours are business hours on weekdays." "Administrator's not in. It's that day. He's not in." She nods slowly. "And the procedure for challenging that determination?" Nolan steps forward. His voice is smoother than bricks, more practiced. "Ma, I understand you've been asking questions about access to the administrative wing. I need to advise you that under Fairmont County Administrative Code Section 4.7, public access to non-courtroom facilities requires either employee credentials or a scheduled appointment." He recites the code smoothly, a weapon he's deployed before. Naomi pulls out her phone, opens the county website, finds the relevant section. "Section 4.73, she reads aloud. "Members of the public may request temporary access passes from the court administrator's office during business hours." "Administrator's not in today." "You said that his posted hours say otherwise." "He's not in." "Then I'd like to speak with whoever is acting in his absence." Nolan exchanges a look with Russell. Something passes between them. Not words, just understanding. "That would be me," Nolan says, "and I'm telling you, no access without an appointment." "How do I make an appointment? Through the administrator's office, which isn't open?" "Correct. Circular logic, designed to exhaust." She's seen it in 100 case files, never experienced it in her own body. "I'd like the complaint form, please." "Complaints go through the administrator's office, which isn't open." "Correct." She opens her journal, writes the date, the time, a detailed description of the exchange. Nolan watches her pen move across the page. "What are you writing?" "Notes." "Notes about what?" "About this conversation." Date, time, participants, statements made, standard documentation. His eyes narrow. "Standard for whom?" "Ma, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this hallway. This is a public hallway. I'm standing in front of a water fountain. You're causing a disruption by writing in a notebook? By refusing to comply with lawful directives?" She closes the journal, looks at him steadily. "What law I breaking?" He doesn't answer. Neither does Russell, but Russell's hand has moved to his belt, where his handcuffs hang. She walks away. The courthouse closes at 5, but people are still filtering out. Employees, attorneys, the day's last defendants. Naomi sits on a bench near the main entrance reviewing her notes. A shadow falls across her page. "You're the one causing the commotion with security." She looks up. Judge Warren Calhoun stands over her, briefcase in hand, overcoat draped over his arm. His face is unreadable. "I asked to see the administrative wing." "That's not commotion. In this courthouse, it is." He studies her the way he probably studies defendants, looking for tells, for weakness, for the angle he can use. "What's your interest here exactly?" "Justice," he snorts. "Everyone says that. The guilty, the innocent, the crazy, the calculating. Everyone's here for justice." "And what are you here for, Judge?" His eyebrow rises. Not many people talk back to Warren Calhoun. "I'm here because it's my job." Been doing it decades. Seen every kind of person who walks through those doors. You don't fit any of the usual categories. Is that a problem? It's an observation. He shifts his briefcase to the other hand. "Whoever you are, whatever you're looking for, my advice is to be careful. This courthouse has a long memory, and it doesn't take kindly to people who ask too many questions." He walks away without waiting for a response. The main doors swing shut behind him. Naomi writes his words in her journal verbatim. Then she adds her own assessment. The next phase, warning received. Source, Senior Judge Warren Calhoun, decades on bench. Implication, institutional resistance extends to judicial level. Question, complicity, or caution? She doesn't have an answer yet. The final observation phase. The checkpoint is crowded. Naomi takes her place in line behind a woman with 2 small children and a man in a wheelchair. The line moved slowly. Russell Harlan isn't at the metal detector this morning. A younger guard is running the screening faster, more efficient, less interested in theater. The woman with children gets through without incident. The man in the wheelchair is wanded briefly and sent on his way. Naomi approaches the detector, steps through. No beep. Have a nice day, Ma. She almost makes it. Russell's voice comes from behind her, cutting through the lobby noise like a blade. Hold it. She stops, turns slowly. He's standing by the exit, arms crossed, blocking her path to the elevators. I didn't clear you to leave the checkpoint. The officer at the detector did. I'm the shift supervisor. I override. She walks back to the checkpoint, raises her arms without being asked. The wand passes over her body again slowly, deliberately. The same ritual she's endured for a short time. Where are you headed this morning? Courtroom 4B, public gallery. What case? I don't have a specific case. I'm observing the proceedings. Why? Because it's a public courtroom. That's not an answer. She lowers her arms, looks at him steadily. It's the only answer I'm required to give. Something shifts in his expression. Frustration, maybe, or something uglier. You know what I think? I think you're here to cause problems. I think you're one of those people who goes around looking for things to complain about, looking for lawsuits. Is that what you think? That's what I think. Noted. She holds out her hand for her bag. He doesn't give it to her. We're not done here. What else do you need? An explanation. Who are you? What do you want? My name is Naomi Ellison. I want to observe court proceedings. That's all. The name doesn't register. Why would it? The announcement of her appointment went out 2 weeks ago in a press release that no one in this building apparently read. Her photograph hasn't been posted anywhere yet. The official installation isn't until the installation day. Right now, she's just a black woman in a cardigan carrying a messenger bag, asking questions that make small men uncomfortable. Russell shoves her bag across the table. Go on, get out of my checkpoint. She collects her belongings, walks toward the elevators, feels his eyes on her back the whole way. In the elevator alone, she allows herself one moment of emotion, not anger, that would cloud her judgment, just acknowledgement. A deep breath held and released. Not long now. She's in the 3rd floor hallway walking toward the water fountain when Nolan Pierce intercepts her. Miss Ellison, we need to talk. He knows her name now. That's new. About what? About your continued presence in restricted areas? This is a public hallway. This is the administrative corridor. You were warned yesterday. I was warned about attempting to access the administrative wing. I'm standing next to a water fountain. You're 40 feet from a door marked authorized personnel only. Is there a minimum distance requirement? Nolan's jaw tightens. Behind him, Brick emerges from the stairwell, flanked by another guard she doesn't recognize. 3 of them now for a woman standing next to a water fountain. Miss Ellison, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this floor. On what grounds? On the grounds that you've been repeatedly warned about your presence in this area. Warnings aren't the same as lawful orders. Under what statute or policy I required to leave a public hallway? Nolan pulls a folded paper from his clipboard. This is a formal trespass warning. It states that on 2 occasions that day you attempted to access restricted areas without authorization. You're being advised that if you return to this hallway again, you will be subject to arrest under Florida Statute 810.09. She takes the paper, reads it carefully. This warning cites attempts to access the administrative wing. I never attempted to enter. I asked questions. Those are different actions. Your questions have been noted, as has your continued presence. I'd like a copy of this warning in my possession. You're holding it. I'd like confirmation that a copy has been filed with the administrator's office and that it will be available through public records request. Nolan's expression flickers. He wasn't expecting her to know the procedure. It'll be in the incident report, which I can obtain how public records request through the administrator's office, the same office that's never opened, the same office. She folds the warning carefully and places it in her messenger bag. Thank you, Lieutenant Pierce. I'll be filing a response. She walks toward the elevator. Russell moves to block her path. Where do you think you're going? To the first floor to observe court proceedings, unless that's also prohibited. Now his hand closes around her arm. The grip is tight, not quite painful, but firm enough to communicate control, firm enough to leave a mark. She looks at his hand, then at his face. Remove your hand. Or what? Or you'll be adding assault to the complaint I'm filing. He doesn't let go. His fingers dig deeper. Who do you think is going to believe you? You think anyone in this courthouse is going to take the word of some? He stops himself. But she heard the word he didn't say. It hangs in the air between them, invisible and poisonous. Somewhat, Sergeant Harlan. His grip tightens. She feels the bones in her arm shift under his fingers. Let go of me. I don't take orders from Sergeant. Nolan's voice cuts through. Sharp warning. Russell's fingers release. He steps back. His face is flushed, his breathing heavy. Get her out of here, Nolan says. Escort her to the first floor. Make sure she stays there. The third guard moves forward, younger, nervous looking. He doesn't touch her, just gestures toward the elevator. Ma, this way, please. She walks. Her arm throbs where Russell's fingers pressed. She'll have bruises tomorrow. In the elevator, the young guard stares at the floor. I'm sorry, he says quietly. He shouldn't have done that. She doesn't respond, just watches the numbers descend. 1. The doors open. Ma, the guard says as she steps out. Be careful. Some people here, they don't like being questioned. She nods, walks into the lobby. Celeste Pryor is watching from the clerk's window, arms crossed, the smallest smile on her face. Chapter Naomi sits on a bench in the first-floor lobby near the window that overlooks the parking lot. The sun is high now, casting long rectangles of light across the marble floor. She's not reading, not writing, just sitting, processing. In more than 2 decades on the appellate bench, she's reviewed thousands of cases. Police misconduct, discrimination, abuse of authority. She's written opinions that quoted civil rights law and cited precedent and spoke in the measured language of judicial reasoning. But she's never felt a man's fingers dig into her arm, never heard the word he almost said, never experienced the particular humiliation of being treated as less than human by someone paid to protect the public. Now she has. Her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Saw what happened on 3. You okay? She doesn't recognize the number, doesn't respond, but she saves it. She returns to courtroom 4B, sits in the back row, watches Judge Calhoun preside over an afternoon docket of misdemeanors and motions. He notices her. She sees his eyes flick to the gallery, register her presence, return to the documents in front of him. He doesn't acknowledge her, doesn't send security, just notes. The afternoon session ends. The courtroom empties. Naomi stays writing in her journal until only she and the cleaning crew remain. Marisol wheels her mop bucket in from the hallway. You again? Me again. The janitor pauses by the last row of benches, studies Naomi's face. You look tired. It's been a long day. I heard what happened upstairs. 3rd floor. Word travels fast in a courthouse, especially when security manhandles someone in the hallway. What did you hear? That brick grabbed you, that you didn't back down. I didn't have anything to back down from. I was standing next to a water fountain. Marisol snorts. That's not how he tells it. How does he tell it? That you were trying to break into the administrative wing, That you threatened him when he stopped you. I threatened him. That's what he says? Naomi closes her journal, looks at Marisol directly. Do you believe him? Doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is what goes in the report. And you've seen what goes in the reports. Something shifts in Marisol's expression. Caution, maybe, or calculation. I've worked here many years. I've seen a lot of things. Have you seen things like what happened to me? Marisol doesn't answer, just wrings out her mop and moves to the next row of benches. Be careful, she says without turning around. Some people in this building, they protect each other and they don't like witnesses. Naomi is back in the lobby, same bench, same spot by the window. She's reviewing her notes when Russell approaches with 2 deputies. Ma, stand up. She looks at him at the deputies flanking him at the handcuffs on his belt. On what grounds? You've been warned about trespassing. You're still here. This is the public lobby. Posted hours are to... You're causing a disturbance by sitting quietly and reading. By refusing to comply with lawful orders? What lawful order have I refused? He doesn't answer, just reaches for her arm. The same arm he grabbed earlier, still tender from his grip. She pulls back. Instinct. Don't touch me. You're resisting. I'm not resisting. I'm asking you not to touch me. Stand up now. She stands slowly, keeping her hands visible, her movements deliberate. I'm going to need your badge number and the names of these officers. You're going to need a lawyer. The handcuffs come out. Cold metal clicks around her wrists. First the left, then the right. The sound is different when it's your own skin. Sharper, more final. Click, click, click. You're under arrest for trespassing under Florida statute 810.0909 and resisting an officer under 843.02. I haven't trespassed. I haven't resisted. You can tell it to the judge. The deputies grip her elbows, start walking her toward the booking area at the back of the courthouse. She catches Celeste Pryor watching from the clerk's window, the smallest smile on her face. She catches Judge Calhoun in the hallway, briefcase in hand, watching her go, his expression unreadable. She catches Marisol in the doorway of a utility closet, mop in hand, eyes wide with something that might be horror. The booking room is gray and smells of disinfectant. They photograph her face. Front inside, the flash is bright. They take her belongings, her bag, her journal, her phone. The manila envelope she still hasn't opened. What's in the envelope? Personal documents. Open it. She doesn't move. Her hands are cuffed. The deputy opens it for her, pulls out the papers inside, scans them without really reading. Some kind of legal stuff, certificate or something. He shoves the papers back in the envelope, tosses it in the property bag with everything else. Hours later, they release her. No charges filed. The DA declined to prosecute, but the arrest is on record. The Mugo exists, and tomorrow when she walks into this building as the presiding justice, every person who watched her get led away in handcuffs will remember. If you think this is the end of the story, you haven't been paying attention. Part 2 drops soon, and the reveal will make everything click. The detention center, doors swing open. Naomi steps out into the night air, thick with humidity, heavy with the smell of rain coming. She retrieves her belongings from the property window. Bag, journal, phone, envelope. The envelope is slightly crumpled now. Someone's fingerprints smudge the corner. She opens it, reads the document inside. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the State of Florida, I hereby appoint Naomi Celeste Ellison to the position of Presiding Justice, Central Judicial Circuit, Fairmont County Division, issued by the Governor's Office, Tallahassee, Florida. Not long now, then this document becomes public. Then everyone who touched her, dismissed her, arrested her will know exactly who they were dealing with. But right now, in this moment, she's just a black woman walking across a parking lot alone with bruises on her arm and a mugshot in the county database. She reaches her rental car, unlocks the door, sits behind the wheel without starting the engine. For a long moment, she just breathes. Then she pulls out her journal, opens to a fresh page, begins writing. The final observation phase events. Formal trespass warning issued. Physical assault by Sergeant Harlan, bruising documented. Arrest for fabricated charges, hours detention, release without charges, witnesses, Lieutenant Pierce, Deputy Pryor, Judge Calhoun, multiple unnamed employees. She pauses. Adds one more line. Assessment. Systemic pattern confirmed. This is not one bad actor. This is institutional culture. Her phone buzzes. The same unknown number from before. Meet me in the parking lot. Northeast corner, come alone. She looks at the message for a long moment. Then she gets out of the car. The northeast corner of the detention center parking lot is dark, shadowed by an old oak tree that blocks the security lights. A figure waits there, small, dark-skinned, wearing a janitor's uniform. Marisol, you came. The janitor says, you asked. I saw what they did to you, the arrest, the booking, all of it. You saw a lot of things today. I see a lot of things every day. Marisol reaches into her pocket, pulls out a folded piece of paper, but I never do nothing about it. Not in many years. Why not? Because I need this job. Because I got a daughter and 2 grandkids. Because people who speak up in this courthouse, they disappear. Their hours get cut. Their supervisors find problems with their work. One day they're here, next day they're not. She holds out the paper. But this, what they did to you today, this was different. Naomi takes the paper, unfolds it. It's a list. Names, dates, brief descriptions. Terrence Brooks, an earlier record. Visiting for traffic ticket. Wanded 4 times. Handcuffs after complaint. Charges dropped. Rosa Alvarez, an earlier record. Witness in assault case. Denied entry for inappropriate dress. Case dismissed without her testimony. Malcolm Reed, an earlier record. Father of defendant. Security held him until court recessed. Missed son's hearing. The list goes on. 47 names, 47 incidents, all black, all brown, all dismissed. Where did you get this? I clean the administrator's office. Sometimes papers fall behind the filing cabinet. Sometimes I catch them before they disappear forever. Naomi folds the paper carefully, places it in her bag. Why are you giving this to me? Because you didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't cuss them out, just stood there calm as anything while they put those cuffs on like you knew something they didn't. Marisol studies her face. Do you know something? Naomi considers lying, considers protecting her plan, maintaining her cover for 2 more days. But something about this woman, this witness who kept years of silence and broke it tonight, deserves honesty. I know that this courthouse needs change. I know that change is coming. And I know that when it does, people like you, people who kept records, who paid attention, who refused to forget, will be the ones who make it possible. Marisol's eyes widen. Understanding maybe or hope. Who are you? Someone who's going to need that list and who's going to make sure it doesn't disappear. She reaches into her bag, pulls out a business card, plain white, no title, just her name and a phone number. Call me after the installation. Marisol takes the card, looks at it, looks at Naomi. After the installation, she repeats. Why then? Because by then everything will be different. She walks back to her rental car, doesn't look back. Behind her, Marisol stands in the shadow of the oak tree, holding a business card that means nothing right now and will mean everything in a short time. The day before, Naomi doesn't go to the courthouse. She drives instead to Tallahassee. Hours there, hours back. In between one meeting at the Attorney General's office, Civil Rights Division. The conference room is bare. Gray walls, government-issued furniture. A window that overlooks a parking garage. Assistant AG Bennett Hale sits across from her, a manila folder in front of him. Miss Ellison, I've reviewed the preliminary documentation you sent last night. This is substantial. It's several days' worth. Imagine what a full audit would reveal. He flips through the folder. The trespass warning, her handwritten notes, photographs of the bruises on her arm taken this morning in her motel room. You were arrested. I was. No charges filed. The DA declined within hours. But the arrest record exists. It does, along with my mugshot, my fingerprints, and whatever narrative Sergeant Harlan put in his incident report. Bennett sets down the folder, rubs his eyes. We've had Fairmont County on our radar for a long while. Complaints filed, investigations opened, then nothing. Cases go cold, witnesses stop cooperating, evidence disappears. Evidence like this. She pulls out Marisol's list. 47 names, 47 incidents. Bennett's eyes widen. Where did you get this? A source inside the courthouse. Someone who's been watching for years. Can they testify? That's a question for after the installation day. He looks at her. Really looks. The new presiding justice is being installed tomorrow. We're hoping she'll be receptive to oversight. I imagine she will. Something shifts in his expression. Not quite understanding, not yet, but the beginning of it. Miss Ellison, is there something you're not telling me? She considers the question, considers the man asking it. Call me after the installation. She stands, collects her documents, and Bennett, when you do call, come prepared. This investigation is going to need everything you've got. She walks out of the conference room, leaves him sitting there holding Marisol's list, wondering what happens on the installation day. The installation day, Mo Arning, 700 Naomi stands in front of the mirror in her motel room, adjusting the collar of a black judicial robe. The fabric is heavy. The fit is precise. More than 2 decades of appellate work, and she's worn this robe 1,000 times. But never like this. Never after what she's experienced in the past several days. She looks at her reflection, the reading glasses on the chain, the gray hair at her temples, the bruises on her arm hidden now beneath the sleeves. She thinks about Russell Harlan's fingers digging into her flesh, about Celeste Pryor's smile, about Nolan Pierce's circular logic, and Preston Vale's dismissal, and Judge Calhoun's warning. She thinks about Marisol standing in the shadows with years of silence breaking open. She thinks about 47 names on a piece of paper, 47 people who came to this courthouse looking for justice and found something else entirely. Today, she becomes the highest judicial authority in Fairmont County. Today, she has the power to change everything. But power alone isn't enough. Power needs evidence. Power needs witnesses. Power needs the receipts that prove what happened wasn't an accident, wasn't an aberration, wasn't just a few bad apples spoiling an otherwise sound barrel. She has those receipts now. Several days' worth, plus a long while of the AG's investigation, plus Marisol's list, plus her own bruises, her own mugot, her own memory of handcuffs clicking shut around her wrists. After the installation, everything changes. She picks up her messenger bag, steps out into the morning light. Time to go to work. The installation ceremony begins at the grand courtroom has been transformed. Flags flanking the bench, flowers on every surface, dignitaries in the gallery, state senators, county commissioners, attorneys who've argued before the Fourth Circuit, reporters with notebooks and cameras. Russell Harlan works the security checkpoint at the main entrance scanning VIPs. Waving through judges he recognizes. He doesn't notice the woman in the black robe entering through the judge's private corridor on the east side of the building. Neither does Celeste Pryor, stationed at the clerk's window, organizing programs for the ceremony. Neither does Nolan Pierce, directing traffic in the lobby. Neither does Preston Vale, checking his phone in the back row of the gallery. Neither does Judge Warren Calhoun, seated in the front row with the other circuit judges waiting for the ceremony to begin. The Chief Judge of the Fourth Circuit stands at the podium. The room falls silent. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today for the installation of Fairmont County's new presiding justice. This appointment represents the culmination of a distinguished legal career spanning more than 2 decades. A jurist known for her precision, her fairness, and her unwavering commitment to the rule of law. He pauses, looks toward the side door. It is my honor to present for installation the Honorable Naomi Ellison, Justice of the Fourth Circuit, now serving as Presiding Justice of Fairmont County. The side door opens. Naomi steps into the courtroom. The applause begins before she reaches the podium. Polite, formal, the expected response to a ceremonial occasion. But in the gallery, one head turns, then another. Russell Harlan, who walked in late after securing the checkpoint, stares at the woman approaching the bench. His face cycles through confusion, recognition, horror. Celeste Pryor's smile freezes. Her fingers grip the edge of her program. Nolan Pierce's clipboard slips from his hands. Preston Vale's phone falls to the floor with a clatter that no one notices because everyone is watching the woman in the black robe take her position at the podium. Judge Warren Calhoun doesn't move, doesn't react, but his hands clasped on his lap have gone white at the knuckles. Naomi reaches the podium. The applause fades. Thank you, Chief Judge Merrick, and thank you to everyone who has gathered here today. Her voice carries through the courtroom, calm, clear, the voice of a woman who has spent 2 decades commanding respect from the bench. Before I take my oath, I would like to read aloud the document that brings me to this podium. She unfolds a piece of paper, the same paper that sat in her messenger bag for several days, the same paper that a deputy glanced at during her booking and dismissed as some kind of legal stuff. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the State of Florida, I hereby appoint Naomi Celeste Ellison to the position of Presiding Justice, Central Judicial Circuit, Fairmont County Division, issued by the Governor's Office, Tallahassee, Florida. She looks up. Her eyes sweep the gallery. They find Russell Harlan frozen in the back row, mouth slightly open. They find Celeste Pryor clutching her program like a lifeline. They find Nolan Pierce, who has gone very, very pale. They find Preston Vale scrambling to pick up his phone without drawing attention. They find Judge Warren Calhoun, who meets her gaze with an expression she cannot read. I've spent the past several days in this building, she says, not as a judge, as an ordinary citizen. A black woman in a cardigan asking questions, seeking access to public spaces. The murmur that runs through the gallery is immediate, confused. In those several days, I was subjected to repeated discriminatory screening at the security checkpoint. I was denied access to public services by staff who refused to acknowledge my presence. I was physically assaulted by a security officer who left bruises on my arm, and I was arrested on fabricated charges, held for hours, and released without a single legitimate basis for my detention. The murmur becomes a rumble. Cameras flash. Reporters scribble. The individuals responsible for these actions are present in this room. Some of them are wearing uniforms. Some of them are sitting in the gallery. And all of them, I suspect, are beginning to understand exactly who they have been dealing with for the past hours. She pauses, lets the silence stretch. I tell you this not for sympathy. I tell you this because my experience is not unique. I have documentation of 47 similar incidents spanning several years. 47 citizens who came to this courthouse seeking justice and were instead subjected to humiliation, obstruction, and abuse. She holds up Marisol's list. These are their names. These are their stories. And as of today, these stories will no longer be buried in filing cabinets or dismissed by administrators who are supposed to protect the public they serve. Her eyes find Preston Vale. He's no longer looking at his phone. I'm filing my judicial oath today under the Florida Constitution, but I also filing something else, A formal complaint with the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division requesting a pattern or practice investigation into Fairmont County courthouse security, administrative, and judicial personnel. She looks at Judge Calhoun. No one is above scrutiny. No one is exempt from accountability. Not the newest guard at the checkpoint. Not the most senior judge on the bench. She folds the list, places it in her bag. Now let us proceed with the oath. The chief judge steps forward. His face is carefully neutral, but his eyes are wide. Raise your right hand. She raises her hand. The same hand that held a pen while Nolan Pierce questioned her notes. The same arm that bears bruises beneath her sleeve. Do you solemnly swear to support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and of the state of Florida? I do. To faithfully execute the duties of the office upon which you are about to enter? I do. And to serve the people of Fairmont County with integrity, impartiality, and respect for the rule of law? I do. The Chief Judge nods. Then, by the authority vested in me by the state of Florida, I hereby install you as presiding justice of Fairmont County. That period, Justice, guide your hand. The applause that follows is different from before. Louder, more uncertain. Some people are clapping because they're supposed to. Others are clapping because they understand what they've just witnessed. And some people aren't clapping at all. Russell Harlan stands in the back of the courtroom, face pale, hands at his sides. Celeste Pryor has stopped pretending to smile. Nolan Pierce is already moving toward the exit. Preston Vale is typing something on his phone. Frantically, desperately. Judge Warren Calhoun sits perfectly still, watching the woman he warned several days ago take her place on the bench. Naomi Ellison, Justice Ellison, looks out at the courtroom that is now officially hers. Court is in session, she says, and we have a great deal of work to do. The applause dies slowly, like embers cooling after a fire. Naomi stands at the podium, watching the room process what just happened. Some faces show shock. Others show calculation, the quick mental math of people figuring out how exposed they are. Russell Harlan hasn't moved from his position near the back door. His face has gone from pale to something approaching gray. The chief judge leans toward her, voice low. Justice Ellison, that was unconventional. It was necessary. The AG's office. You've already contacted them. Assistant AG Bennett Hale has been briefed. He'll be in touch with your office this afternoon. The chief judge's expression tightens, but he nods. This is above his pay grade. Way above. The reception is in the second-floor conference room. Shall we proceed? In a moment, she steps away from the podium, walks down from the bench. The gallery watches her move, every eye tracking her path through the courtroom. She stops in front of Russell Harlan. He's taller than her by inches, broader by a heavy margin. His hands, which gripped her arm hard enough to leave bruises, hang uselessly at his sides. Sergeant Harlan. His throat works. No sound comes out. You're relieved of duty pending investigation. Report to Lieutenant Pierce for reassignment to administrative leave. Surrender your badge and weapon within the hour? His mouth opens, closes. Do you understand? You can't. His voice cracks. You can't do this. I have a union. I have rights. You have the right to due process, which is exactly what you denied 47 citizens over several years. The difference is you'll actually receive it. She turns away, walks toward the exit. Behind her, Russell finds his voice. This isn't over. She doesn't stop. Doesn't turn. No, she says, it isn't. The reception is a disaster. Not visibly. The caterers still circulate with champagne and canapes. The string quartet still plays something appropriately dignified. The dignitaries still smile and shake hands. But the energy in the room is wrong. Conversations cluster in tight groups. Eyes slide toward Naomi whenever she moves. Phones buzz constantly, carried to corners for urgent whispered calls. Celeste Pryor is nowhere to be seen. Nolan Pierce left the building within minutes of the ceremony's end. Preston Vale remains. He has to. Protocol demands it. But he's positioned himself as far from Naomi as physically possible, surrounded by county commissioners who look equally uncomfortable. Judge Warren Calhoun approaches her near the window. "Justice Ellison, congratulations on your installation." "Thank you, Judge Calhoun." That was quite a speech. It was a statement of facts. Facts have a way of being interpreted differently depending on who's listening. She turns to face him fully. He's older than she is by many years, with the weathered authority of a man who's seen everything the legal system can produce. Is that a warning, Judge? It's an observation. This courthouse has survived a lot of disruptions over the years. New administrators come in with big ideas. They make changes, then they leave, and things go back to the way they were. Is that what you think will happen here? I think you've made powerful enemies on your first day. I think those enemies have connections that go beyond this building. And I think the system you're trying to change has been in place for a very long time. He sips his champagne. I've been on this bench for decades. I've seen reformers come and go. The ones who last are the ones who learn to work within the system, not against it. The system you're describing protects abusers. The system I'm describing is what we have. Burning it down doesn't build something better. It just leaves ashes. She considers him. His face is unreadable. Could be friendly advice, could be a threat. "There's an email in the evidence file," she says quietly. "An earlier period. Subject line screening concerns. Your name is on it." Something flickers in his expression. The first crack in decades of judicial composure. "I don't know what you're referring to." "The email from Administrator Vale forwarding a complaint about discriminatory screening. Your reply was 3 words. Handle it internally. I receive hundreds of emails a day. I can't be expected to remember. The Judicial Qualifications Commission will help you remember. They've opened a preliminary inquiry." The crack widens. His hand holding the champagne flute develops a slight tremor. "You're making a mistake, Justice Ellison, going after everyone at once. You should focus on the obvious targets. Harlan, maybe Pierce, the ones no one will defend. I'm not going after anyone. I'm documenting facts and filing complaints. The appropriate authorities will determine accountability, and you're one of those authorities. Now, for matters I'm not personally involved in, yes. And for matters you are personally involved in, I'll recuse myself as required by law." She sets down her untouched champagne. "Excuse me, Judge Calhoun, I have work to do." She walks away, feels his eyes on her back. Decades on the bench, hundreds of emails a day. And he remembered exactly which one she was talking about. Thracian was just the opening move. What happens in the next 4 months will determine everything. Keep watching. The week after the installation is chaos. Naomi's chambers become a war room. Files stack on every surface. Her assistant, a young woman named Clara, who came with the position, works 18-hour days just keeping track of the incoming documents. Initial entry, Russell Harlan files a grievance through his union claiming wrongful termination. The union representative demands an immediate hearing. The next phase, Nolan Pierce submits a 14-page response to preliminary inquiries, denying all allegations and citing his exemplary service record. The final observation phase, Celeste Pryor goes on medical leave, stress-related, according to the paperwork. Day 4, Preston Vale hires a private attorney, not the county counsel, who normally handles administrative matters, but a criminal defense lawyer from Jacksonville with a reputation for making problems disappear. Day 5, The Attorney General's office officially opens a pattern or practice investigation into Fairmont County courthouse operations. Day 6, someone leaks Naomi's Muga to the local news. The headline reads, "New presiding justice arrested days before taking bench." The story implies without stating directly that she may have been arrested for legitimate reasons. It quotes sources within the courthouse who question her fitness for office. It does not mention the 47 other complaints. It does not mention the drop charges. It does not mention the bruises. Naomi reads the article on her phone. Sitting in her chambers at outside, the sun is just beginning to color the sky. She sets down the phone, opens her laptop, begins drafting her response. Not a press release, not a statement. A motion to the Judicial Qualifications Commission of Florida, reads the header. Request for immediate investigation into retaliatory media leaks. She works for hours. When she finishes, the document is 12 pages long with exhibits running to 47 more. Names, dates, patterns, the mechanics of institutional retaliation laid out in precise legal language. She sends it at by noon. The story has shifted. The leak is being investigated. The sources within the courthouse are being questioned, and somewhere someone is very nervous. Later brings the first physical confrontation. Naomi is walking from her chambers to courtroom 1 when Nolan Pierce steps out of a side corridor blocking her path. Justice Ellison. A word. She stops. Waits. "You're destroying careers based on one bad week," he says. His voice is controlled, but there's something underneath. Anger, maybe? Or fear. "Many years I've worked here. Many years of service, and you're going to throw it away because you didn't like how we handled your visit?" "I documented what I observed. The investigation will determine what's true." "The investigation?" He laughs, a harsh, bitter sound. "You mean the investigation you requested? The one being run by your friend at the AG's office?" "Assistant AG Hale is not my friend. I met him once for a short while. That's not what people are saying." "What people?" "People who matter. People who've been here a lot longer than you. People who know how things really work." He steps closer, close enough that she can smell the coffee on his breath. "You think you're untouchable because you wear a robe? You think that piece of paper from Tallahassee protects you? Step back, Lieutenant. Or what? You'll have me arrested?" He laughs again. "On what charge? Standing in a hallway? Step back." He doesn't move. His hand rises, not to strike, but to point, finger jabbing toward her face. "You don't know what you've started. You don't know who you're dealing with. This courthouse has been here for generations, and it'll be here long after you're gone. One judge can't change." "Lieutenant Pierce?" The voice comes from behind them. Marisol Reeves stands in the corridor, mop in hand, eyes wide. "The justice asked you to step back." Nolan turns, looks at the janitor who's dared to interrupt him. "Mind your own business. This is my business. I work here too. And I saw what you just did. You didn't see anything. I saw you block her path. I saw you get in her face. I saw you raise your hand." Marisol's voice is steady now, and I'm writing it down. Date, time, witnesses. Just like she taught me. Nolan's face contorts. For a moment, Naomi thinks he might do something stupid. Grab Marisol or push past her or say something that can't be taken back. Instead, he steps away, hands up, palms out. This conversation isn't over. Yes, Naomi says it is. He walks away. His footsteps echo down the corridor. Marisol watches him go. Then she turns to Naomi. "You okay?" "I'm fine. Thank you." "He's not wrong, you know, about this place, about how things work." She pauses. "But he's not right either. Things can change. They just take time. And witnesses and witnesses." Marisol smiles. A small, tired smile. I've been one for years. Guess I finally figured out what I was witnessing for. As the inquiry continues, the formal complaint process begins. Under Florida law, courthouse security personnel are subject to administrative discipline through the Court Administrator's Office, which is now vacant since Preston Vale has been placed on paid leave pending investigation. In the interim, Naomi has appointed an acting administrator, a retired judge named Eleanor Raines, brought in from the Second Circuit specifically because she has no connections to Fairmont County. Judge Raines is 63, no nonsense, with a reputation for fairness that even the union can't credibly attack. I've reviewed the documentation she tells Naomi during their first meeting. 47 prior complaints, 0 sustained findings. That's not statistics. That's a cover-up. Can you prove that? I can prove pattern. Intent is harder. But we don't need intent for administrative discipline. We just need preponderance of evidence. And for criminal referrals, that's the AG's job. I handle the employment side. She flips through her notes. Harlan's the clearest case. Physical assault, documented bruising, body cam footage that mysteriously cut out during the arrest. His union's going to fight it, but he's done. What about Pierce? Trickier. He stayed just inside the lines. Technically, his reports are carefully worded. He never directly ordered the assault. He just created the conditions for it. That's how supervisors avoid accountability. That's how smart supervisors avoid accountability, and Pierce smart. She closes her folder. Vale is the interesting one. If he was actively suppressing complaints, that's obstruction. Possibly criminal obstruction if we can tie it to specific cases where witnesses were intimidated or evidence destroyed. And Judge Calhoun Eleanor hesitates. That's above my authority. Judicial conduct complaints go through the JQC, not through me. I know. I'm asking your opinion. My opinion? She considers. Calhoun's been on that bench longer than some attorneys have been alive. He's got friends everywhere, the state legislature, the governor's office, the Florida bar. Taking him down would be complicated. Complicated isn't the same as impossible. No, it isn't. She meets Naomi's eyes, but it might be unwise. You've already made a lot of enemies. Making more might not be strategically sound. Strategic soundness isn't my primary concern. What is justice for 47 people who deserved it and didn't get it, and for however many more would have come after them if nothing changed? Eleanor nods slowly. Then we do this right by the book. No shortcuts, no overreach. If Calhoun's guilty, the evidence will show it. If he's not, the evidence will show that too. And if the evidence is inconclusive, then we document what we have and let the system work. She stands. I know that's not satisfying, but it's how legitimate accountability functions slowly, imperfectly, one case at a time. You sound like you've done this before. I've been on the bench for decades, Justice Ellison. I've seen a lot of institutions resist change. The ones that succeed are the ones that build their case carefully and let the facts speak for themselves. She walks toward the door, pauses. The ones that fail are the ones that try to do everything at once and give their enemies ammunition to claim persecution. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're angry, and I think anger, while justified, can be a liability. She opens the door. Use it as fuel. Don't let it drive the car. Later, the body cam footage surfaces. Naomi is in her chambers reviewing motions when Clara knocks on the door. Justice Ellison, Assistant A.G. Hale, is online too. He says it's urgent. She picks up the phone. Bennett, we found it. His voice is tight with controlled excitement. Harlan's body cam footage from your arrest. The department claimed it malfunctioned, but a TE recovered the full file from the backup server. What does it show? Everything. The confrontation in the lobby, him grabbing your arm, you saying, "Don't touch me." Him saying, and I quote, "You're resisting." Then the arrest, the whole thing. She closes her eyes, remembers the sound of handcuffs clicking. What's the timestamp? Starts at, ends at. A short while of footage they claimed didn't exist. Who claimed it didn't exist? Pierce signed the equipment malfunction report. But here's the interesting part. The backup server logs show someone accessed that file a short time after your arrest, accessed and attempted to delete. Who? Login credentials belong to Preston Vale. The pieces click together. Not just a cover-up at the security level, a coordinated effort reaching into administration. Can you prove he was the one who logged in? Building access records show he was in his office at that time. It's circumstantial, but combined with everything else. It's pattern. Bennett pauses. Justice Ellison, this changes things. What we have now isn't just administrative misconduct. It's potential criminal conspiracy, destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice. If Vale was deleting files to protect Taggart, and if Pierce knew about it, and if anyone else in the chain was involved, then we're not looking at a few bad actors. We're looking at a system. Yes. And systems are harder to prosecute than individuals. She thinks about Judge Calhoun's email. Handle it internally. What do you need from me right now, huh? Nothing. Let us work. We're going to subpoena the server logs, the access records, the communication archives, everything in writing from the past several years. It's going to take time, months probably, but we're going to build a case that can't be dismissed. And in the meantime, be careful. You've already been targeted once. The people we're investigating know they're being investigated. That makes them dangerous. She looks out the window of her chambers. The courthouse parking lot stretches below, cars arranged in neat rows. Everything appearing normal. I'll be careful. Justice Ellison. Yes. Thank you for not letting this go. A lot of people would have taken the judgeship and moved on. Pretended those several days didn't happen. Those several days happened to 47 other people before me. The only difference is I have the power to do something about it. That's what I mean. Most people with power don't use it this way. She thinks about the robe hanging in her closet, the weight of it, the responsibility. Most people with power never experienced what it's like not to have any. She hangs up, sits in the silence of her chambers. A while down, months to go. The evidence is building. The investigation is expanding, but the system isn't going to go quietly. Part 2 continues, and the hearing that follows will shake this courthouse to its foundation. As the investigation moves forward, the depositions begin. Under oath, in a conference room at the Attorney General's Tallahassee office, Russell Harlan tells his story. I was doing my job, following protocol. That woman, he catches himself. Ms. Ellison was behaving suspiciously. Multiple attempts to access restricted areas, refusing to comply with lawful orders. Define behaving suspiciously. Bennett says she was asking questions, writing things down, looking at stuff she shouldn't be looking at. What stuff specifically? Security cameras, door locks, building layouts. Is it illegal to look at security cameras in a public building? It's suspicious. That's not what I asked. Is it illegal? Russell's attorney leans forward. My client isn't a legal expert. He's a security officer trained to identify potential threats. And Ms. Ellison constituted a potential threat because she asked questions about visitor access. She was persistent, wouldn't take no for an answer. Should she have taken no for an answer? What do you mean? Section 4.7.3 of the Fairmont County Administrative Code, which you cited repeatedly during your interactions with Ms. Ellison, explicitly allows members of the public to request temporary access passes during business hours. You told her that wasn't possible. Were you aware that the code said otherwise? Russell's face reddens. I don't memorize every subsection of the administrative code, but you quoted Section 4.7 to justify denying her access. Lieutenant Pierce gave me that information. So, Lieutenant Pierce told you what to say? He told me the relevant policy? Did he tell you the relevant policy incorrectly? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Bennett makes a note. Let's talk about the physical contact, the bruising on Ms. Ellison's arm. She pulled away. I was trying to restrain her. Restrain her from what? From leaving? Was she under arrest at that moment? She was being detained. On what grounds? Suspicion of trespassing in a public lobby. She'd been warned about the third floor. The warning, which we have a copy of, pertains to the administrative corridor. The lobby is a different location. Did you have authority to detain her in the lobby based on a warning about the third floor? Russell looks at his attorney. The attorney's face is carefully neutral. I believed I had authority. Based on what? Based on my training? Who trained you? Lieutenant Pierce. Bennett makes another note. Every answer circles back to Pierce. Every justification points upstream. Sergeant Harlan, are you aware that body cam footage of the arrest has been recovered from the department's backup server? The color drains from Russell's face. I was told the footage was corrupted. Who told you that? Lieutenant Pierce? Were you aware that someone accessed the backup server a short time after the arrest and attempted to delete that footage? No, I didn't know that. Did you ask anyone to delete the footage? No. Did Lieutenant Pierce? I don't know. Did you discuss the footage with anyone after the arrest? Russell's attorney interrupts. My client will invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination for any questions relating to evidence preservation. Bennett nods. Noted. Let's move on. The deposition continues for 4 more hours. By the end, Russell Harlan has invoked the Fifth Amendment 37 times, deeper into the investigation. Nolan Pierce's deposition takes a different approach. Where Russell was defensive, Pierce is smooth. Where Russell contradicted himself, Pierce is consistent, almost rehearsed. I had concerns about Ms. Ellison's behavior from the first day, he says. Multiple attempts to access restricted areas, detailed note-taking of security installations, refusal to identify the purpose of her visit. In my experience, that pattern is consistent with pre-operational surveillance. Pre-operational surveillance for what? I don't speculate about motives. I identify patterns and respond appropriately by issuing trespass warnings by documenting concerning behavior and advising the individual of relevant policies. The warning you issued cited attempts to access the administrative wing. Miss Ellison was arrested in the public lobby. How does the warning apply? The warning established a pattern of non-compliance. Her continued presence in the building after being formally warned constituted ongoing trespass. That's not what Florida Statute 8109 says. I'm not a lawyer, Mr. Hale. I'm a security professional. I made judgment calls based on my training and experience. Your training included instruction on the specific statutes governing trespass. My training included general legal principles relevant to courthouse security, who provided that training, various sources, department protocols, professional development seminars, consultation with courthouse administration, with Mr. Vale specifically. Administrator Vale was part of the administrative structure. Yes. Did he ever instruct you on how to handle complaints about discriminatory screening? Pierce pauses, the first crack in his smooth facade. I don't recall specific instructions on that topic. You don't recall in many years? There have been many topics covered over many years. Bennett pulls out a document. This is an email dated an earlier period from Administrator Vale to you. Subject line: complaint handling protocols. The body reads, for complaints alleging discrimination, document the interaction thoroughly and route to my office. Do not engage with the complainant further. Do not provide copies of incident reports. Do not acknowledge receipt of the complaint in writing. Pierce's jaw tightens. Does this refresh your recollection? I may have received that email. That period have. Your signature is on the read receipt. Then I received it. Did you follow these instructions? I followed administrative protocols as communicated to me by my superiors. The protocols in this email instructed you not to acknowledge complaints in writing. Is that standard practice for legitimate complaint handling? I'm not an expert on complaint handling procedures. You've been handling complaints for years. I've been handling security incidents. Complaints were routed to administration where they disappeared. 47 complaints over several years. 0 sustained findings. 0 acknowledgments. 0 follow-up. Pierce's attorney speaks up. Is there a question, Mr. Hale? Yes. Lieutenant Pierce, were you aware that complaints were being systematically dismissed without investigation? I was aware that complaints were being handled by the appropriate office. The appropriate office that dismissed every single one. That wasn't my area of responsibility. What was your area of responsibility? Security operations, threat assessment, personnel supervision, personnel like Sergeant Taggart? Yes. Did you supervise his screening procedures? I oversaw his general performance. Did you instruct him on which individuals to select for secondary screening? I didn't instruct him specifically. Did you create an environment in which certain individuals, black individuals specifically, were more likely to be selected? That's a characterization I reject. 47 complaints, 47 minority complainants. Is that coincidence? I can't speak to the demographics of complainants. You literally just said you supervise security operations. How can you not speak to the demographics of the people your operations targeted? Pierce's attorney interjects again. My client has answered the question. My client has avoided the question, Bennett responds. But I'll move on. The deposition continues. Pierce invokes the Fifth Amendment only twice, both times on questions about the body cam footage. When it's over, Bennett calls Naomi from his car. Pierce is smart. He's building a defense that throws Vale under the bus while keeping himself just clean enough to survive. Can he survive? Depends on what Vale says. If Vale cooperates, gives us the full picture of who ordered what. Pierce is exposed. If Vale takes the fall alone, Pierce might walk with a suspension and a transfer. That's not justice. That's reality. The higher-ups are always harder to reach. They write emails instead of using their hands. They supervise instead of acting. By the time misconduct reaches them, it's been filtered through 3 layers of deniability. So what do? We keep building. Vale's deposition is next week. If he's scared enough, if he thinks Pierce is setting him up, he might flip. And if he doesn't, then we take what we can get. Harlan's done regardless. Pierce might survive. Vale depends on how good his lawyer is. A pause. And Calhoun. Calhoun is a different animal entirely. What do you mean? Judges are protected by different rules. The JQC moves slowly, glacially in some cases. Even with that email proving Calhoun participated in a cover-up versus merely being negligent, it's a high bar. He told them to handle it internally. That's not negligence, that's direction. It's direction that can be interpreted as follow proper procedures. His lawyers will argue he assumed the administrator's office would investigate, not cover up. Do you believe that? It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what we can prove. Another pause. But no, I don't believe it. A judge with decades on the bench knows exactly what handle it internally means when there's no internal process to handle anything. As the pressure builds, Preston Vale's deposition is scheduled for that day. On the following day, his attorney contacts the AG's office with a proposal, full cooperation in exchange for immunity from criminal prosecution. Bennett calls Naomi immediately. He wants to flip. What's he offering? Everything. The complaint suppression system. The directive from he claims it came from higher up. Someone with authority over the administrator's office. Judge Calhoun. He didn't name names on the phone, but if he's offering what I think he's offering, this goes to the bench. Naomi sits in her chambers, phone pressed to her ear, watching the late afternoon light shift across her desk. What do you need from me right now? Nothing. Let us negotiate. If Vail delivers what he's promising, we'll have documentary evidence of judicial involvement in civil rights violations. That's historic. And if he's bluffing, then we're back to administrative discipline for the others and an ongoing JQC inquiry for Calhoun. Not ideal, but not nothing. He's not bluffing. How do you know? Because I know how systems work. The people at the bottom follow orders. The people in the middle give orders and claim they were following them, but somewhere there's a decision maker. Someone who looked at 47 complaints and decided they were all going to disappear. And you think that's Calhoun? I think a 30-year judge doesn't just happen to be CC'd on emails about complaint handling. He's on that distribution list because he wanted to be, because he was managing the system, not just participating in it. If you're right and Vail confirms it, then the system that protected these people finally turns on them. That's usually how it works. The cover-up artists survive by selling each other out. Naomi thinks about Marisol. Years of silence broken for the right reason. Sometimes people talk because they're scared, and sometimes they talk because they finally see a chance for something different. Which one is Vail? Scared. Definitely scared. But scared people can still tell the truth. Let's hope so. I'll call you after the deposition. The dominoes are starting to fall, but the biggest domino, the one that's been on that bench for decades, hasn't moved yet. The hearing that determines everything is next. Eventually, the disciplinary hearing is set for a later date, not a trial. Administrative hearings don't have juries, don't require proof beyond reasonable doubt, don't carry criminal penalties, but they determine employment. They determine careers. They determine whether people who abuse their authority get to keep abusing it. Judge Eleanor Raines presides. She's converted Conference Room A into a makeshift hearing chamber. Long table for the panel, separate tables for respondents, gallery seating for witnesses and observers. Naomi sits in the gallery, not as judge, as witness. The woman who was screened 17 times, grabbed, warned, arrested, and photographed, reduced to a name on a complaint form. It's a strange position. She has more power in this building than anyone else in the room. But here in this proceeding, she's just another victim waiting to testify. The respondents enter in a file. Russell Harlan with his union representative. Nolan Pierce with his private attorney. Celeste Pryor looking small and frightened between her sister and a public defender. Preston Vail is not present. His cooperation agreement requires him to testify for the prosecution. Judge Calhoun is not present. His case is proceeding separately through the Judicial Qualifications Commission, but his shadow hangs over everything. The emails, the directives, the decades of looking the other way. Judge Raines opens the proceedings. This is an administrative hearing convened under Florida Administrative Code. Section 28 to 106 to determine whether disciplinary action is warranted against the named respondents. This is not a criminal proceeding. The standard of proof is preponderance of evidence more likely than not. Respondents are entitled to representation, to present evidence, and to cross-examine witnesses. She looks at each table in turn. The charges include violations of civil rights policies, discriminatory enforcement of security procedures, false arrest, assault, and obstruction of administrative processes. These are serious allegations. They will be evaluated fairly based solely on the evidence presented. She nods to Bennett Hale. Counsel for the state may present opening statements. Bennett stands. Sure, he's wearing the same gray suit he wore during depositions. But there's something different in his bearing. The coiled energy of a prosecutor who finally has all the pieces. Judge Raines. The evidence will show a pattern of discriminatory enforcement spanning at least several years. Not random incidents, not isolated bad actors, but a systematic campaign of harassment targeting minority visitors to this courthouse. He pauses, lets the words settle. The evidence will show that Sergeant Russell Harlan selected black and brown citizens for enhanced security screening at rates far exceeding random chance. That he physically assaulted at least one such citizen, Justice Naomi Ellison, leaving documented bruises on her arm. That he arrested her on fabricated charges that were immediately dismissed by the district attorney's office. The evidence will show that Lieutenant Nolan Pierce supervised these practices, provided legal justifications he knew to be false, and participated in the destruction of body cam evidence that would have documented the assault. The evidence will show that Deputy Clerk Celeste Pryor systematically obstructed minority visitors' access to public services, denying assistance to individuals based on their race while providing immediate service to white visitors. And the evidence will show that former court administrator Preston Vale, who has agreed to cooperate with this investigation, ran a complaint suppression system designed to ensure that no evidence of discriminatory practices ever reached investigators, oversight bodies, or the public. He picks up a folder from his table. The state will present body cam footage, email chains, server logs, witness testimony, and the documented experiences of 47 citizens who came to this courthouse seeking justice and found something very different. He sits down. Russell's attorney stands next. He's older, union-provided, with the weary manner of someone who's defended a lot of guilty cops. Judge Raines. Sergeant Harlan has served this courthouse for years. His record includes numerous commendations, 0 sustained complaints prior to this matter, and consistent evaluations of meets expectations or higher. What we're witnessing here is not the exposure of a discriminatory system, it's the weaponization of a single high-profile complaint to destroy careers that don't deserve destroying. Nolan's attorney follows, younger, sharper, with the polished aggression of private practice criminal defense. Lieutenant Pierce denies all allegations. He followed established protocols, relied on information provided by his superiors, and made reasonable decisions under difficult circumstances. If errors were made, they were made at the administrative level, not on the security floor. Celeste's public defender speaks briefly. His client was a low-level employee following instructions, never directly involved in the incidents involving Justice Ellison, being scapegoated to satisfy political pressure. Judge Raines nods through all of it. Opening statements are complete. Counsel for the state may call the first witness. Naomi takes the stand at the oath is familiar. She's administered it thousands of times, but taking it rather than receiving it feels different, weightier. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Bennett approaches. Justice Ellison, please describe your first interaction with courthouse security on an earlier date of this year. She begins at the beginning, the metal detector, the wand that beeped at nothing. Russell's face, his tone, the way he looked at her. He said, "You got a problem with reading or are you waiting for an invitation?" His hand was on my messenger bag. He hadn't asked permission to search it. What happened next? He opened my bag, searched through my belongings, held up an envelope, the envelope containing my judicial commission, and asked what was inside. Did he open the envelope? No, but his fingers left marks on the paper. Smudges. I noticed them later. She describes the next entry, the clerk's window, Celeste's refusal to help, the white woman who walked up without a number and received immediate service. She called her horn. That's the word I remember. Let me check his calendar. Hun. I had been standing there for several minutes. She hadn't said a single word to me. The next phase continues. The administrative corridor, Nolan with his clipboard. The circular logic. Every question I asked led back to an office that was supposedly closed. Administrators not in, forms aren't available. Appointments go through administration. It was designed to exhaust anyone who tried to navigate it. The final observation phase, the escalation. Sergeant Harlan intercepted me at the checkpoint. Even though the machine didn't alarm, he said, "You again?" Like my presence was already a problem. Did anything happen in the third-floor corridor? Yes. Lieutenant Pierce issued me a formal trespass warning. While he was explaining it, Sergeant Harlan grabbed my arm. Grabbed it how? She rolls up her sleeve. The bruises have faded, but the photographs are entered into evidence. Purple, green marks in the shape of fingers. Hard enough to leave these. Did you resist? I pulled back. Instinct. He was hurting me. What did you say? I said, remove your hand. He said, or what? I said, or you'll be adding assault to the complaint I'm filing. He didn't let go. His grip got tighter. How did the interaction end? Lieutenant Pierce intervened, told Sergeant Harlan to escort me to the first floor. She pauses. That was when I should have been safe. Instead, hours later, I was arrested in the public lobby. The arrest, the handcuffs, the booking, hours in a holding cell. I sat on a metal bench. The cell smelled like disinfectant. Someone had scratched initials into the wall. MJ. I wondered who MJ was, what they'd been charged with, whether they'd been treated the way I was being treated. What happened after hours? I was released. No charges filed. The district attorney had reviewed the arrest report and declined to prosecute. Did anyone explain why you were held for hours before that decision was made? No one explained anything. I collected my belongings and walked out. Bennett pauses, lets the silence hold. Justice Ellison, you're now the highest judicial authority in this building. The people who arrested you are your subordinates. Why are you pursuing this? Why not let it go? She looks at the gallery, at the faces watching her. Because I wasn't the first, I was the 48th. And if I let it go, there would be a 49th and a 50th and a 100th. She pauses. I have power now. Power I didn't have when I was standing in that lobby with handcuffs on my wrists, using that power to protect people who don't have it. That's not revenge. That's the job. Bennett sits down. Cross-examination. Russell's attorney stands. Justice Ellison, you entered this courthouse several days before your scheduled installation, wearing casual clothes, carrying no identification, and asking questions about building security. Is that correct? I identified myself by name to multiple individuals. The fact that they didn't recognize the name doesn't mean I was concealing anything. You didn't show your judicial commission. I wasn't required to. It wasn't relevant to my activities as a member of the public, but you were there in your capacity as a judge to test the system as you described it in your deposition. I was there to observe, to understand how ordinary citizens experience this courthouse. Isn't that deceptive? Pretending to be an ordinary citizen when you're actually investigating courthouse staff. I wasn't pretending to be anything. I wore my own clothes. I gave my real name. I asked questions any citizen has the right to ask. The only deception was the assumption made by your client and others that a black woman in a cardigan couldn't possibly have any authority. The attorney shifts tactics. You've filed complaints against 5 individuals. You've requested a pattern or practice investigation. You've made public statements about systemic discrimination. Is it fair to say you have a personal stake in seeing these respondents disciplined? I have a stake in seeing justice done. That's not personal, that's professional. But you were personally affected, personally arrested, personally bruised. Yes. So this isn't just about policy, it's about what happened to you. Naomi considers the question. When Sergeant Harlan grabbed my arm, he was grabbing every black person who'd been grabbed before me. When I was arrested on fabricated charges, I was being arrested in a long line of fabricated arrests. What happened to me isn't separate from what happened to 47 others. It's part of the same pattern. And yes, I take it personally because it is personal. Discrimination is always personal. That's what makes it wrong. The attorney has no follow-up. He sits down. Marisol Reeves takes the stand. She's wearing the same janitor's uniform she always wears. Gray shirt, darker gray pants, name badge clipped to her pocket, but she holds herself differently today. Straighter, more present. Ms. Reeves, how long have you worked at Fairmont County Courthouse? Many years that period. In that time, have you witnessed interactions between security personnel and visitors that concerned you? Yes. How many times? I don't know exactly. Dozens, maybe more. Can you describe what you witnessed? She takes a breath. The first time was maybe an earlier year. Young man couldn't have been more than 20. He was here for traffic court, brick. Sergeant Harlan pulled him aside, wanded him twice, searched his bag, made him empty his pockets. The kid was nervous, talking fast, trying to explain he was just here for a speeding ticket. Russell told him to shut up. What happened next? Nothing. The kid went to his hearing. I mopped the floor. That's what I did back then. That's what I did every time I saw something. Did you see other incidents? Yes, lots. Not always brick. Others too, but brick most often. He had a way of picking people out. You could see him scanning the line, waiting for someone who looked right. Right for what? Right for targeting. Nolan's attorney objects. Speculation. Judge Raines shakes her head. The witness is describing her observations. Overruled. Ms. Reeves, did you ever document these incidents? Not officially. I started keeping a notebook a few years back, writing down what I saw, names if I heard them, dates, what happened. Why did you start keeping records? Because I knew someday someone would ask, and I wanted to be ready. Bennett introduces the notebook into evidence. Page after page of handwritten entries. Terrence Brooks, Rosa Alvarez, Malcolm Reed. 47 names. Ms. Reeves, how did you obtain the list of complaints you provided to Justice Ellison? I cleaned the administrator's office. Sometimes papers fall behind the filing cabinet. Sometimes they end up in the recycling. I started pulling them out a few years ago, just keeping them. Did anyone instruct you to do this? No, I did it on my own. Why? She looks at the gallery, at the faces of people she's worked alongside for 2 decades because somebody had to. Because these people, the ones in the complaints, they didn't deserve to be forgotten. They came here looking for justice, same as everybody else, and instead they got this. Cross-examination is brief. Nolan's attorney asks whether Marisol has a personal grudge against the respondents. No grudge. I don't know most of them personally. I just know what I saw. You kept records for years without telling anyone. Isn't that deceptive? I kept records for years because nobody wanted to hear. It's not deception when nobody asks. You waited until Justice Ellison arrived to come forward. A judge with power with a personal stake. Isn't it convenient timing? Marisol's eyes flash. The first sign of anger, convenient. Ma, I waited many years. I watched people get mistreated every week for years. And I kept my mouth shut because I needed this job. Because I have a daughter. Because people who speak up in this building disappear. She leans forward. There's nothing convenient about finally telling the truth. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and I do it again tomorrow. Preston Vale takes the stand at he looks diminished, smaller somehow. Grayer, the confident administrator, replaced by a man facing the consequences of his choices. Mr. Vale, you've agreed to cooperate with this investigation in exchange for immunity from criminal prosecution. Is that correct? Yes. Tell us about the complaint handling system you administered. He looks at his hands folded on the table in front of him. It started before me. When I took the job, there was already a process. Complaints came in, security incidents, discrimination allegations, access issues. They were supposed to go through formal channels, civil rights division, state oversight, internal affairs. Instead, they came to me. And what did you do with them? I reviewed them, made notes, filed them. Filed them where? In my office. A filing cabinet behind my desk? The same filing cabinet M. Reeves described? Yes. What happened after you filed them? Nothing. They sat there. Sometimes I'd pull them out, add to the file, a follow-up complaint, a related incident, but they never went anywhere. They never got investigated. They just accumulated. Who instructed you to handle complaints this way? The question hangs in the air. Otis looks at his attorney at the gallery at the empty chair where Judge Calhoun would be sitting if this were his hearing. When I started the job in an earlier year, I met with Judge Calhoun. He was the senior judge then. Not presiding, but senior, influential. He explained how things worked. What did he explain? He said the courthouse had a reputation to protect. That complaints, especially discrimination complaints, could attract media attention, invite state oversight, create problems for everyone. He said, my job was to make sure those complaints didn't become problems. Did he tell you to suppress them? Not in those words. He said to handle them internally, to make sure they were resolved appropriately. He said, if I did my job right, no one would ever need to know about them. Did you understand what he meant? I understood that complaints were supposed to disappear, and I made them disappear for years. Bennett produces the email chain, the subject line about racial profiling concerns. Judge Calhoun's 3-word reply. Mr. Vale, is this the type of communication you had with Judge Calhoun about complaints? Yes, this is typical. He didn't want details. He wanted confirmation that problems were being handled, and handled meant suppressed. Handled meant they went into my filing cabinet and never came out. Cross-examination focuses on Otis' credibility. He's admitted to wrongdoing, he's received immunity. Isn't he just saying what the prosecution wants to hear? I'm saying what happened. I did wrong, I know that now. But I didn't do it alone. There was a system. People above me, below me, around me. All of us knew. All of us participated. I'm just the one who got caught with the filing cabinet. You're blaming Judge Calhoun for your own choices. I'm not blaming anyone. I made my choices. I take responsibility, but I was following a pattern that existed before I got here and would have continued after I left. That pattern came from somewhere. It didn't invent itself. The hearing recesses at 6. Not long now of testimony remain. Character witnesses, expert analysis of the statistical patterns, closing arguments, but the shape of the outcome is already clear. Naomi walks out of the conference room into the evening air. The courthouse parking lot is nearly empty, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Marisol catches up to her near her car. How do you think it went? The evidence is strong, the testimony is consistent, Judge Raines will rule fairly, but outcomes depend on many things. Legal standards, political pressure, the willingness of institutions to admit their failures. Marisol nods. She's been watching institutions fail for years. Whatever happens, she says it's different now. People know the records exist. The words were said out loud. She pauses. That matters. Even if everything else stays the same, it won't stay the same. How do you know? Naomi looks at the courthouse, the building where she was screened, questioned, grabbed, warned, arrested. The building that is now officially hers. Because I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. Kishto, the verdict is coming, but justice in the real world doesn't come in clean packages. What happens next will show exactly how messy accountability can be. A while later, Judge Raines's decision arrives at Anna that day. Naomi reads it in her chambers alone with the door closed. Findings and recommendations in the matter of administrative complaint, an earlier year to KC 0892. The document runs 47 pages, one for each name on Marisol's list, perhaps by design. She turns to the conclusions. Sergeant Russell Harlan. The evidence establishes by a pre-pound endurance that Sergeant Harlan engaged in discriminatory enforcement of security procedures, physical assault of a courthouse visitor, and false arrest. His conduct violated multiple provisions of Florida civil rights law and courthouse policy. Recommendation: termination effective immediately. Lieutenant Nolan Pierce. The evidence establishes that Lieutenant Pierce supervised discriminatory practices, provided false legal justifications, and participated in the destruction of evidence. However, the evidence also establishes that Lieutenant Pierce acted within a system created and maintained by his superiors. Recommendation: suspension without pay for a short time, followed by mandatory retraining and probationary status for months. Any subsequent sustained complaints during the probationary period shall result in automatic termination. Deputy Clerk Celeste Pryor. The evidence establishes that Deputy Clerk Pryor engaged in discriminatory service practices. However, the evidence also establishes that she was a low-level employee following established patterns without direct instruction or supervision from respondents Harlan or Pierce. Recommendation: written reprimand and mandatory training in civil rights compliance. No suspension. Court Administrator Preston Vale. Mr. Vale's cooperation agreement with the Attorney General's office renders him outside the scope of this proceeding's disciplinary authority. However, for the record, the evidence establishes that Mr. Volley administered a systematic complaint suppression program that prevented 47 valid complaints from reaching appropriate oversight. His conduct constituted obstruction of administrative processes and facilitation of civil rights violations. Based on his cooperation, the state has agreed not to pursue criminal charges. However, Mr. Vale is permanently barred from employment in any Florida courthouse administrative role. Naomi sets down the document. 2 terminations: Taggart and Vale. 1 suspension: Pierce. 1 reprimand: Celeste. Partial justice, the system's usual bargain. She picks up her phone, calls Bennett. I've read it, and it's not enough. No, it's not. He pauses. But it's also more than we usually get. 2 careers ended, 1 career damaged, a permanent bar. That's concrete consequence. Celeste Pryor keeps her job. Celeste Pryor was at the bottom of the hierarchy. She didn't make policy, she followed it. Punishing her for systemic failure would set a bad precedent. She refused to serve black visitors for years. She did, and she'll carry that reprimand in her file forever. But her conduct was downstream from the real decision-makers. He pauses. The real question is Calhoun. What's happening with his inquiry? The JQC is deliberating. They've reviewed Vale's testimony, the emails, the pattern evidence. But judicial discipline is different from administrative discipline. Different standards, different politics, different protections. What do you think they'll do? Honestly, I don't know. Calhoun has friends, decades of them. He'll call in every favor he has, and if he survives, then he survives. Wounded, diminished, but still on the bench. A long pause. Justice Ellison, I know this isn't what you wanted, but you've accomplished more in months than most reformers accomplish in careers. The system is exposed. The records are public. The policies are changing. The policies are announced. Whether they're enforced is different. Yes, it is. And that's the next fight, and the fight after that, and the fight after that. His voice softens. This is what systemic change looks like. Not a single victory, a series of battles, most of which you only partially win. She looks at the 47-page document on her desk. I know what systemic change looks like. I've been fighting it from the appellate bench for more than 2 decades. She pauses. I just hope that sitting on this side of the courtroom would feel different. Does it? It feels exactly the same. Like pushing a boulder uphill, like the system has infinite weight and you have finite strength, but you keep pushing. Yes. Because the alternative is letting the boulder roll back down and crush everyone standing below. 2 weeks later, the policy changes take effect. Naomi issues Administrative Order and earlier year KC 117. New protocols for courthouse security and public access. Body cameras mandatory for all security personnel with footage automatically uploaded to secure servers at shift end. No manual deletion permitted. Independent review of all trespass warnings by a civilian oversight board before enforcement. Quarterly audits of complaint processing by the state's Civil Rights Division. Anonymous complaint hotline with direct reporting to the Attorney General's office. Mandatory annual training for all courthouse staff on civil rights compliance, implicit bias, and de-escalation. The order runs 12 pages. It cites Florida law, federal precedent, and best practices from jurisdictions that have already implemented similar reforms. It also includes something else, a preamble. The purpose of a courthouse is to provide equal justice under law. When the courthouse itself becomes a site of discrimination, it betrays the fundamental promise of the legal system. These protocols are designed to ensure that every person who enters this building, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or economic status, is treated with dignity and respect. Compliance is not optional. Enforcement will be rigorous. The era of handling things internally is over. She signs it with her full name and title. Justice Naomi Celeste Ellison, Presiding Justice, Fairmont County. The Attorney General's pattern or practice investigation continues. Consent decree negotiations stretch through the fall. The county resists meaningful monitoring. The state pushes for independent oversight. Neither side wants to go to federal court. The expense, the exposure, the loss of control. In that period, they reach a compromise. And months federal monitor with authority to review policy implementation, receive complaints directly, and issue public reports. The monitor's recommendations are non-binding, but failure to implement them triggers automatic escalation to the DOJ. It's not everything Naomi wanted. It's not nothing. Bennett delivers the news in person. The county agreed this morning. The consent decree will be signed next week. What changed their minds? The midterm elections. County commissioners who are defending the courthouse are facing challengers who are attacking them for it. Political calculation finally pointed in the right direction. So, we got lucky. We got timed, which is a kind of luck. He sets the agreement on her desk. A long while independent monitor public reporting. It's not a transformation, but it's a foundation, and after a long while, that depends on what the monitor finds. If compliance is genuine, the oversight ends. If compliance is cosmetic, he shrugs. Then we escalate. DOJ pattern or practice. Possible federal receivership. Things get much more serious. They should have gotten serious many years ago. Yes, they should have. He meets her eyes. But they didn't. And now they are. That's not justice. Not complete justice, but it's progress. Progress? The word tastes thin in her mouth, like water when you're starving. What about Calhoun? Bennett's expression shifts. Careful now. The JQC ruled this morning. Hand, public reprimand, no removal, no suspension. His conduct fell short of the standards expected of judicial officers, but did not rise to the level of misconduct warranting removal from office. She closes her eyes, the boulder rolling back down. He stays on the bench. He stays on the bench, but his reputation is destroyed. The reprimand is public record. Every attorney who appears before him will know. Every colleague will know. Every voter, if he ever faces retention election, will know. Reputation isn't accountability. No, it isn't. He pauses. But it's not nothing either. Warren Calhoun will spend whatever years he has left on that bench as a cautionary tale. The judge who looked the other way while 47 citizens were mistreated, that follows him, and the people who were mistreated, what follows them? Bennett doesn't answer. There is no answer. That period. The first snow of the season falls on Fairmont County. Unusual for Florida, a light dusting that melts by noon. Naomi stands at her chamber window, watching the white flakes dissolve against the glass. Months since her installation. 6 months since she walked into this building in a cardigan and walked out in handcuffs. 6 months of hearings, depositions, negotiations, reforms. The courthouse looks the same from outside. The same columns, the same steps, the same sign, reading Fairmont County Courthouse. Justice for all. But inside things are different. Russell Harlan is gone. His union filed an appeal. It was denied. He works private security now at a warehouse outside of town. Minimum wage, no authority over anyone. Nolan Pierce returned from suspension last week. He's on administrative duty. Desk work, paperwork, no contact with the public. His probation runs another a long while. One complaint, and he's done. Celeste Pryor still works the clerk's window, but she serves everyone now quickly, efficiently, without the screening process that used to determine who deserved help and who didn't. Preston Vale is teaching high school history in a town 200 meters away. His immunity agreement prevents him from discussing the case. His students don't know who he used to be. Warren Calhoun sits in courtroom 3B every day, presiding over cases the way he always has, but fewer attorneys choose to appear before him. His colleagues keep their distance. The junior judges who used to seek his counsel don't anymore. He's become, as Bennett said, a cautionary tale, the monument to his own failure. And Marisol Reeves. Marisol still cleans, still pushes her mop bucket through the halls every evening, emptying trash cans and polishing floors. But she walks differently now, stands straighter, meets people's eyes. She testified, she told the truth, and the world didn't end. A knock on Naomi's door. Come in. Marisol enters, pushing her cart. She stops when she sees Naomi at the window. Didn't mean to interrupt, Justice Ellison. I can come back. You're not interrupting. I was just thinking about what? About whether any of this made a difference. Marisol considers the question. She's had many years to think about things like difference and change and what matters. You know what I noticed last week? What? A woman came through security. Black woman about your age wearing a nice dress here. For traffic court, probably nervous. You could see it in her shoulders. What happened? The new guard, young guy, Robinson, I think, waved her through the detector. It didn't beep. She started to step aside for the wand like she expected it. And Robinson said, "You're good, Ma. Have a nice day." Marisol smiles, a small, tired, triumphant smile. She looked confused like she didn't believe it. Then she just walked through like a regular person, like she belonged here. She pauses. That's a difference. Small one, but it's real. Naomi looks at the woman who kept years of silence and broke it when it mattered. Thank you, Marisol, for everything. Didn't do much, just told the truth. That's not nothing. That's everything. Marisol nods. Doesn't say anything else, just begins cleaning, the way she has for years. But her back is straighter now, her movements are lighter. Something is different. Small, but real. Late evening. Naomi's desk lamp is the only light on the floor. Everyone else has gone home. The clerks, the bailiffs, the other judges. Just her and the paperwork and the silence. She opens her mail, bills, scheduling requests, a letter from the State Bar Association recognizing her distinguished service to the administration of justice, and one more item, a manila envelope, no return address, hand-delivered to the Chalmers' mailbox. She opens it carefully. Inside, a single photograph. The image shows a group of Fairmont County Courthouse employees at what appears to be a retirement party. The timestamp in the corner reads, "That period an earlier year." Paper streamers hang from the ceiling. Someone has brought a cake. Preston Vale stands near the center, smiling, holding a drink. Judge Warren Calhoun is beside him. Champagne glass raised in a toast. Russell Harlan hovers near the back. Uniform crisp, arms folded. And in the corner of the frame, partially obscured by someone's shoulder, a face she doesn't recognize, the face is circled in red ink. She turns the photograph over on the back, handwritten in neat block letters. "You found the branches. The roots go deeper." She stares at the message, at the circled face, at the celebration of people who spent years protecting each other's secrets. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number, she answers. Justice Ellison, silence on the other end. Just breathing. Who is this? Someone who's been watching for longer than many years. The voice is distorted, digitally altered, impossible to identify. What do you want? The same thing you want. Justice, but not the kind you're getting. Not the reprimands and the suspensions and the consent decrees. Real justice. I don't know what you mean. You found the people who hurt you. Harlan, Pierce, Vale, even Calhoun. But they're not the system. They're just the parts you could see. Then what I'm not seeing? The photograph, the circled face? Do you know who that is? Naomi looks at the image again. The partial face in the corner, male, maybe 50s, graying hair, expensive suit, no nameplate, no identification. No, his name doesn't matter. His position does. He was assistant state attorney for Fairmont County from an earlier year to an earlier period. He's the one who declined to prosecute every case Vale suppressed. 47 complaints, 0 indictments. You think that was coincidence? Naomi's hand tightens on the phone. How do you know this? I know because I was there on the inside, part of the system. The voice pauses until I couldn't be anymore. Then why not come forward? Come testify. Because testimony gets people killed or disappeared or discredited. Another pause. The branches you cut, Taggart, Foley, they'll grow back. Different names, same function. The roots are what matter, and the roots go all the way down. How far? Far enough that one judge can't reach them? Far enough that 18-month monitors and consent decrees are just theater? Naomi looks out the window. The parking lot is dark, empty. The courthouse looks peaceful in the night. What do you want me to do? Keep digging. Keep documenting. Keep building the case. The voice hardens. But know that when you get close, really close, they'll come for you. Not with handcuffs this time. With something worse. Is that a threat? It's a warning from someone who learned the hard way. The line goes dead. Naomi sets down the phone, picks up the photograph. A retirement party? A toast? A circled face? The roots go deeper. She opens her journal, the same one she's carried since the bar exam, now more than half full, turns to a fresh page, writes the date. New thread, unknown source, claims, coordinated prosecution suppression at ASA level, an earlier year, an earlier period, possible target, name to be identified, warning, escalation if investigation continues. She pauses, adds one more line, investigation continues. The lamp casts long shadows across her desk. Outside, the courthouse sleeps, but somewhere in the dark, the roots are stirring. On the morning of the installation, Naomi arrives at the way she has every day for months. Same entrance now, the judge's corridor with its private checkpoint and its respectful guards. No more screening theater, no more waiting in line. The privileges of power. She passes through security with a nod, takes the elevator to the third floor, walks the corridor that Brick Harlan once guarded with such territorial aggression. New guards now, younger, better trained, wearing body cameras that blink green with every step. She reaches her chambers, opens the door, and stops. Someone is sitting in her chair, Warren Calhoun. He's aged in months, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes, but his posture is the same. The authority he's carried for decades, even diminished, even reprimanded, refuses to fade. Justice Ellison, I hope you don't mind. The door was open. She doesn't move from the threshold. It wasn't open. I locked it last night. Did you? He smiles. The thin, cold smile of a man who knows exactly what he did. My mistake. How did you get in? I've had keys to every office in this building for decades. Old habits. He stands slowly. Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to offer perspective. I've received your perspective. I declined it. That was before. He moves around the desk, positioning himself closer. Not threatening, just present. Before the hearing, before the JQC, before you learned what winning actually costs. I know what it costs. Do you? He tilts his head. You got Harlan fired, fully suspended, Vail exiled. Even put a black mark on my record that will follow me to my grave. Quite a victory. It was accountability. It was theater. His voice hardens. You removed the pieces. You could see the pawns. But the board is still in play. Justice Ellison, the same game continues, just with different faces. Is that supposed to discourage me? It's supposed to educate you. I've been playing this game for decades. You've been playing for months. You think you understand how deep it goes, but you're still seeing branches. The word hits her. Branches. The same word from the anonymous caller. What do you know about the roots? Something flickers in Calhoun's expression. Weariness, maybe? Or fear? I know they're not something a first-year presiding justice should be digging for. Why not? Because people who dig too deep have a way of disappearing. Not literally, but professionally, personally. Their careers stall, their marriages fail, their health declines. Nothing you can prove. Just a pattern of misfortune that follows them everywhere. That sounds like a threat. It's a warning. The same warning I would give anyone who thought they could single-handedly reform a system that's been in place for generations. He moves toward the door. I'm not your enemy, Justice Ellison. I was part of something I should have stopped. I know that now. But destroying me won't change what I was part of. It's bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than this courthouse. Then what do you suggest? I suggest you take your victory, implement your reforms, be the face of change, and let the rest of it stay buried. He pauses at the threshold. Some graves are better left undisturbed. He walks out. His footsteps echo down the corridor. Naomi stands in her chamber doorway, watching him go. Some graves are better left undisturbed. She thinks about the photograph, the circled face, the voice on the phone. Then she closes her door, locks it, sits down at her desk, opens her journal, writes, Calhoun visit. Unauthorized entry, warning delivered. Rear investigation, implications, conspiracy extends beyond courthouse, pressure to cease inquiry. She pauses, adds, inquiry continues. Chatter. What happens when you pull on a thread and the whole fabric starts to unravel? Subscribe for part 3 because the roots are deeper than anyone imagined. 1 week later, Naomi receives a call from an unknown number. Different voice this time. No distortion, just a woman's voice. Low and urgent. Justice Ellison, we need to meet. Who is this? Someone who knows about the photograph, about the circled face, about what happened in an earlier year. What happened in an earlier year? Not on the phone. Meet me at the public library, downtown branch, tomorrow at noon, second floor, history section. How will I know you? You won't. I'll know you. The line goes dead. Oh, the library is quiet at noon on a midweek. Naomi climbs the stairs to the second floor, passes the reference desk, finds the history section. Rows of shelves stretch toward the back wall filled with books no one has touched in years. She walks slowly, pretends to browse, waits. A woman appears at the end of the aisle, mid-50s, professional dress, carrying a leather briefcase. Her face is familiar. Something about the angle of her jaw, the set of her shoulders. Justice Ellison, you called? I did. The woman moves closer. My name is Clara Kent. I was an assistant state attorney in Fairmont County. From an earlier year to an earlier year. Clara, the same name as Naomi's assistant. Coincidence or not? What did you do in that role? I reviewed cases for prosecution, made recommendations to the ASA. She pauses. I also saw things I wasn't supposed to see. What things? Complaints that came up from the courthouse? Civil rights complaints mostly. They'd land on my desk for review, which meant I was supposed to find reasons not to prosecute. And did you? For a while I told myself it was procedure, protocol, that someone above me had good reasons for declining these cases. She meets Naomi's eyes. Then I started keeping records. Records of what? Of every case I was told to bury. 43 total, all involving courthouse personnel, all involving minority complainants, 43. Not 47, but close. Why didn't you come forward? I tried. In an earlier year, I went to my supervisor, the ASA, the one in your photograph, and told him I had concerns. He listened, said he'd look into it. She laughs bitterly. 2 weeks later, I was transferred to a satellite office. Document review, no case access, no public contact. My career was over before I understood what happened. You didn't report to anyone else. I tried to contact the Attorney General's office. My calls were never returned. I tried to reach the JQC. My letters disappeared. I even contacted a journalist. Independent, not local, he was interested. She pauses. He died months later. Car accident, single vehicle. No witnesses. Naomi feels a chill that has nothing to do with the library's air conditioning. You think it was connected? I don't think anything. I know what I saw. And I know what happened to people who saw too much. But you're talking to me now because you're different. You're inside the system, but you're not part of it. Not yet. She pulls a folder from her briefcase. These are copies of my records. 43 cases, names, dates, charges recommended, reasons for declination. It's not everything. The originals were destroyed when I left the office, but it's enough. Naomi takes the folder, opens it. Case after case, name after name. A paper trail of justice denied. Why give this to me? Because you did what I couldn't. You fought back. You won partially. And you're still standing. She pauses. That makes you either very lucky or very dangerous. Either way, you're the best chance we've had in years. We, the people who've been watching, people keeping records, waiting for someone with the power to actually do something. She glances toward the stairs. I have to go, but there's something else you should know. What? The circled face in your photograph? The former ASA. He's not just a former prosecutor, he's currently a partner at Kirkland Calhoun and Associates, the largest law firm in the county. and one of his clients is the county government itself. The name hits her. Kirkland Calhoun. Calhoun is in Judge Calhoun. His brother Edward Calhoun. They've been working together for years, one in the courthouse, one outside it. The perfect arrangement. Whatever Solomon couldn't handle internally, Edward handled externally and vice versa, the roots going deeper than she imagined. How do I reach you? You don't. I've already taken too much risk being here. Clara picks up her briefcase. But if you need more, look at the firm's client list. Look at which cases they've handled. Look at the outcomes. She walks toward the stairs, stops. Justice Ellison. Yes. Be careful. The people you're investigating, they've been building this for decades. They won't let one judge tear it down without a fight. She disappears down the stairs. Naomi stands alone in the history section, holding a folder full of 43 cases. The roots go deeper and she's just started digging. Jack. That night, Naomi sits in her chambers, the folders spread across her desk. 43 cases, 43 people denied justice. She adds them to her existing records. 47 from Marisol's list, 43 from Clara's files. Some overlap names that appear in both, but the total unique case is 71. 71 people. She opens her laptop, searches for Kirkland, Calhoun, and Associates. The firm's website is sleek, professional. Practice areas include municipal law, government contracts, civil litigation, employment defense, client list, Fairmont County Government, Fairmont County School District, Kirkland Regional Hospital, half the major institutions in the region, and there on the partners page, Edward Calhoun, senior partner, distinguished career, former assistant state attorney, an earlier year to an earlier period, the same dates Clara mentioned. She cross-references the complaints Hargrove suppressed the cases Clara was told to decline. The timeline matches perfectly. Two brothers, one on the bench, one in private practice, working together, or at least in parallel, to ensure that certain complaints never became cases and certain cases never became problems. She thinks about Warren Calhoun's visit, his warning about digging too deep. Some graves are better left undisturbed. She pulls out her journal, writes, "Connection established. Judge Warren Calhoun, Judiciary. Edward Calhoun, Private Counsel. Former ASA role. Complaint Suppression Network. Additional evidence needed. Financial ties, communication records, case outcomes with firm involvement." She pauses, adds risk assessment significant. Resources required substantial probability of success unknown, then underneath proceeding anyway up. 1 month later, the investigation expands quietly. Bennett Hale assigns 2 additional attorneys from the Civil Rights Division. They work out of Tallahassee, not Kirkland. Safer that way. Less chance of leaks. FOIA requests go out to 7 agencies. Subpoenas issue for communication records. Financial analysts begin tracing money flows between the county, the firm, and various shell entities. The picture that emerges is complex, layered, built over decades. Kirkland, Calhoun, and Associates doesn't just represent the county. They represent most of the county's employees in civil suits, including notably the same courthouse personnel who generated the complaints being suppressed. Defense fees paid by county insurance flow directly to the firm. The same firm whose founding partners spent years deciding which cases would be prosecuted. It's not illegal, not clearly. The ethics are murky, the conflicts technically disclosed, the arrangements blessed by various oversight bodies that may or may not have understood what they were approving. But the pattern is undeniable, a system designed to protect its own. Complaints enter at one end, disappear in the middle, and if anyone sues anyway, the same firm that buried the evidence now defends the accused. Perfect, airtight, immune to external scrutiny, until now, that period. The county government files a motion to quash the AG's subpoenas. The argument attorney-client privilege. The communications between the county and Kirkland Calhoun and Associates are protected. Releasing them would compromise ongoing legal matters and expose confidential strategy. Naomi reads the motion in her chambers. The firm's name is on the letterhead. Edward Calhoun's signature is at the bottom. He's fighting back. She calls Bennett. They're stonewalling. They're panicking. If those communications show what we think they show, coordination between the firm and county officials to suppress complaints, the privilege doesn't hold. Crime fraud exception. Can you prove crime fraud? That's the problem. We need the communications to prove the exception that lets us get the communications. Classic catch-22. So what do? We appeal. Take it to the circuit court. Make them rule on the exception before we see the documents. He pauses. It'll take months, maybe longer. Months. Justice moves slowly. Justice Ellison. Especially when the targets have good lawyers. They are the good lawyers, which is why this is going to take time. She hangs up, looks at the motion on her desk, Edward Calhoun's signature, the same flourish as his brother's, now that she looks closely. Family resemblance, in penmanship, in strategy, in the willingness to protect each other at any cost. That period, the appeal is filed. The circuit court schedules oral arguments for that period, months away. Until then, the subpoenas are stayed. The investigation stalls. Naomi continues her work. Cases to decide, motions to rule on the ordinary business of justice. But underneath, always the question, how deep do the roots go? She meets with Clara Kent one more time at a coffee shop 30 meters outside Fairmont County. Clara has been following the news, tracking the legal filings. They're buying time, she says. Every month they delay. More records disappear. More witnesses forget. More evidence degrades. I know. You need something they can't bury. Something that exists outside their control. Like what? Clara considers. In an earlier year, there was a case a county employee who tried to sue after being terminated for raising concerns about discriminatory practices. The case was settled before trial, Confidential Agreement Standard NDA, settled by Kirkland Calhoun, defended by them on behalf of the county. But here's the thing, the plaintiff's attorney wasn't local. She was from Miami and she's still practicing. You think she has records? I think she took a settlement because her client was exhausted and the opposition was overwhelming. But lawyers keep files, and if she understood what she was settling away from, she might be willing to talk. She might. Clara writes a name on a napkin, slides it across the table. Rachel Delgado. Delgado and Partners. Miami. Tell her Clara sent you. Tell her the case she settled in an earlier year might not be as closed as everyone thought. 1 week later, Naomi drives to Miami over the weekend. Hours there, hours back. The office of Delgado and Partners is modest, a converted house in a residential neighborhood, the kind of practice that takes cases nobody else wants. Rachel Delgado is in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that have seen everything the Florida legal system can produce. Justice Ellison. Clara said you might call. She said you might remember a case from an earlier year. I remember every case but that one. She pauses. That one stayed with me. Tell me. Rachel pulls a folder from her filing cabinet. Old paper yellowed at the edges. My client was named Angela Morrison. Worked for the county for years. Administrative assistant in the building department. Good evaluations, no disciplinary issues. Then she started noticing things. What things? Permit applications getting approved for certain contractors, denied for others, inspection reports altered after the fact, money changing hands in ways that didn't match the official records. She reported it to her supervisor, to the inspector general, to anyone who would listen. Rachel's face hardens. Nobody listened. Instead, she started getting written up. Performance issues that didn't exist. Attendance problems fabricated from thin air. Within months, she was terminated for cause, and she sued. She sued. Wrongful termination, retaliation, discrimination. She was black, which made her an easier target. We had documents, testimony, a solid case. Rachel pauses. Then the other side brought in Kirkland, Calhoun, and Associates. What happened? They buried us. Motion after motion, discovery disputes, privilege claims, technical objections to every piece of evidence we tried to introduce. The case that should have taken a year took 3. My client ran out of money, ran out of energy, ran out of hope. You settled. We settled. $200,000. Confidential agreement. NDA for everyone involved. Angela took it because she had no choice. I took it because I couldn't win against an army. She looks at the folder, but I kept the files. Everything we gathered before they shut us down. And I've wondered for years if anyone would ever come asking. I'm asking. Rachel hands her the folder. Angela Morrison is dead now. Cancer several years ago, but her story isn't. And neither are the documents. She meets Naomi's eyes. If you can use this, if you can prove what we couldn't, then maybe her fight wasn't for nothing. Naomi opens the folder. Emails, memos, financial records, a paper trail leading from the building department to the inspector general to the county attorney's office. And there, at the end of the chain, a letter from Edward Calhoun to the county administrator dated several days before Angela Morrison was fired. The matter has been contained. No further action required. Contained like a spill, like a fire, like a human being whose life was about to be destroyed. This is proof. This is evidence. Proof requires a courtroom. And the people who wrote that letter control the courtrooms, not all of them. Rachel studies her for a long moment. Justice Ellison. I've been practicing law for years. I've seen reformers come and go. Most of them burn out. Some of them get bought off. A few of them disappear. I'm not going anywhere. That's what they all say. She pauses. But you're the first one who has files like these. And you're the first one who has the position to do something with them. Then let's do something. Rachel smiles, the smile of a woman who's waited many years for this moment. I thought you'd never ask. The evidence is mounting. The connections are clear. But taking down a system this entrenched requires more than documents. It requires courage. And the final confrontation is coming. That period. The circuit court hears oral arguments on the privilege motion. Naomi isn't present. She's recused from anything touching her own case, but Bennett calls her with updates. It went well. The judge is skeptical of the privilege claims. She asked Edward Calhoun directly why communications about complaint handling would be covered by attorney-client privilege. What did he say? He said the county has a right to seek legal advice on personnel matters. She said that's not what these communications appear to be. He said she can't know what they are until she sees them. She said that's exactly her point. When will she rule? A while, maybe 3, a while. After months of delay, after all the stonewalling and the motions and the technical objections, the roots are finally starting to show. A while later, the ruling comes down. Crime fraud exception applies. Subpoenaed communications shall be produced within a short time. Naomi reads the decision in her chambers. 12 pages of careful legal reasoning, building to a conclusion that cracks the foundation of everything Kirkland, Calhoun, and Associates has been protecting. The evidence before the court suggests that the communications at issue were not made for the purpose of obtaining legal advice, but for the purpose of coordinating the suppression of legitimate complaints and the obstruction of investigative processes. Such communications fall squarely within the crime fraud exception and are not protected by attorney-client privilege. She sets down the decision, picks up her phone. Bennett, I know. I just read it. What now? Now we wait a short time for the documents. Then we see exactly what they were hiding. And the Mercers Edwards already filed an emergency appeal to the state Supreme Court. But the circuit judge's reasoning is solid. Unless something unexpected happens, the appeal fails. And Solomon? Solomon hasn't said a word publicly since your installation. He's still on the bench, still hearing cases, but he's a ghost. No one talks to him, no one seeks his guidance. He's just waiting. Waiting for what? For this to blow over. For you to move on. For the system to reset and forget. Bennett pauses. He's been waiting decades for various things to blow over. It's worked before. Not this time. No, not this time. A short time later, the documents arrive. 3 boxes of paper, thousands of pages, emails, memos, internal communications, strategic planning documents. Bennett's team spreads them across a conference table in Tallahassee. Naomi drives up to review them in person. "This is it," Bennett says. "Everything they didn't want us to see." She picks up the first folder and begins to read. The story the documents tell is worse than she imagined. Not just complaint suppression, not just selective prosecution. A coordinated system spanning decades involving dozens of participants at every level of county government, building inspectors who overlooked code violations for contractors represented by Kirkland Calhoun, police officers who declined to arrest individuals connected to the firm's clients, judges who recused themselves from cases that might expose conflicts of interest or failed to recuse when they should have. And at the center of it all, the 2 Calhoun brothers, Solomon on the inside, Edward on the outside, managing, directing, protecting. One email stands out. Date. That period an earlier year. From Edward Calhoun to Warren Calhoun, Preston Vale, 3 other names redacted. Subject, containment protocol. Gentlemen, the Morrison matter is resolved. However, this near miss highlights the need for better coordination between judicial, administrative, and private counsel functions. I propose quarterly meetings to review pending matters and identify potential exposure before it becomes critical. Quarterly meetings to coordinate to contain a conspiracy documented in their own words. Chapuk that period, the Attorney General announces criminal charges. Press conference at the state capitol. Cameras, reporters, the full machinery of public attention. Today we are filing charges against former court administrator Preston Vale, former Assistant State Attorney Edward Calhoun, and Senior Judge Warren Calhoun of Fairmont County. The charges include conspiracy to obstruct justice, civil rights violations under 18 U.S.C., Section 242, and official misconduct under Florida Statute 839.24. 24. Naomi watches the broadcast from her chambers. Criminal charges against a sitting judge. The first time in Florida history that a senior member of the judiciary has faced such charges while still on the bench. Her phone rings. Unknown number, she answers. Justice Ellison. The voice is distorted again, the same voice from months ago. "You did it. Who is this?" "Someone who's been waiting a long time for this day." A pause. But the fight isn't over. Edward has resources. Solomon has friends. The system doesn't fall because you charge 2 men. It falls when you change how the system thinks about itself. What do you want me to do? Keep building, keep documenting. The charges are a start, but the trial, the public trial, the evidence exposed for everyone to see, that's where the real change happens. That's where the whole county has to confront what it allowed. The trial could take years. Change always takes years. But you've started something that can't be stopped now. The documents are public. The pattern is undeniable. Even if they're acquitted, even if every charge gets thrown out on some technicality, the truth is out there. That's not justice. No, it's not. But it's foundation, and foundation is what you build justice on. The line goes dead. Naomi sets down the phone, looks out the window at the courthouse parking lot. Foundation. She spent a long while building it, rustle by brick, case by case, document by document. The roots go deep, deeper than one investigation can reach, deeper than one judge can dig. But the digging has started and it won't stop. Not now, not ever. 1 year later, the trial begins. Warren Calhoun sits at the defense table, diminished, gray. The decades of authority stripped away like paint from old wood. Edward Calhoun sits beside him, brothers, partners, co-defendants. Preston Vale is not present. He pleaded guilty months ago in exchange for testimony. He'll serve several years in federal prison. The courtroom is packed. Reporters, attorneys, citizens who've waited decades for this moment. Naomi sits in the gallery. Not as judge, not as witness this time. Just as a citizen watching justice, slow, imperfect, uncertain, finally reach the people it should have reached long ago. The prosecutor rises. The evidence will show the trial will take months. The verdict will be complicated. The aftermath will be messy. But the foundation is built. The truth is documented. The system is exposed. And somewhere in Fairmont County, a woman named Marisol still cleans the courthouse halls. Her back a little straighter, her step a little lighter. Justice isn't an ending, it's a beginning. And this story is just getting started. The story of Justice Naomi Ellison is not just about one woman who was treated unfairly. It is the story of millions who walk into government buildings every day and are judged not by their character, but by the color of their skin. The first lesson: documentation is a weapon. Naomi wrote down everything. Marisol kept her notebook for years. Those crumpled pages brought down an entire system. When you face injustice, do not just get angry. Get evidence. Dates, times, names, exact words. Evidence does not lie. The second lesson: systems change when someone dares to speak. Marisol stayed silent for years because she feared losing her job. But when she finally spoke, she was no longer alone. One person's courage can inspire hundreds of others to find theirs. The third lesson: justice is never perfect. Not everyone gets punished, not every wound gets healed, but every small step, every termination, every new policy, every voice finally heard lays the foundation for greater change. If you have ever been treated unfairly, remember this: you are not invisible. Your story matters. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one nobody expected. Share this video, tell your story. And remember, justice is not a destination. Justice is a journey we all walk together. The robe does not make the judge. Character does. And character is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in moments of injustice. Subscribe. Turn on notifications because stories like this need to be told.